Slow news day indeed. Nevertheless, it is indeed your boy Tim, the handsome liberal. Well, let me go ahead and rephrase that. It actually is not a slow news day. I think it's starting to become more of a redundant, if not depressing, news day. At least for some folks that may be on the left side of the aisle. What I want to ask right off the bat, starting the program off, because I'm hearing this from many folks, particularly on the left, but hell, even some folks on the right are now starting to suggest that the SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States, is pro-Trump. What are the chances with a 6-3 majority of Republicans on the Supreme Court, 3 of them appointed by President Trump himself? What are the chances that the SCOTUS has gone MAGA? Do any of you folks believe that Trump has the Supreme Court in his back pocket? Why the hell are we asking this question? Because it looks like they may either grant Trump full immunity or at the very least, pass his case, his immunity case, back down to the appellate court, which would require they rule on it again, and then it comes back to the Supreme Court if it doesn't go in Trump's favor. By the time all that's done, we'll be well into 2025, which is indeed the delay that many would suggest that Trump is seeking. So the Supreme Court could ultimately refuse to give Trump immunity, but they could push the decision back so that by the time they adjudicate and rule on it, it's well in the next year, which is the delay that President Trump is seeking. So we're asking, do you believe the Supreme Court is actually working on behalf of the former president, just simply giving him the delay he needed? I think most folks are a bit hesitant to suggest they're going to give him immunity, but they don't have to give him immunity, folks, to give him a victory. The delay is in the victory itself. Keep in mind, even if Trump does not become president, he's in his late 70s. Every day he delayed these cases coming to a conclusion. That's a good thing when you're that old, particularly if they're trying to lock your ass up or even threatening to do so. Johnny, probably the biggest super chat I've ever seen. Wow. Let me respond to that. John, damn. Wow. Ask your MAGA guests whether they believe the earth is flat. I'm betting 75% of MAGA are also flat earthers. You guys think that's true? John, thank you for the incredible super chat. Wow. You guys think that's true? That most folks suggesting they're MAGA believe that the earth is flat? Now, I know there's a hell of a lot of conspiracies out there, whether it's, the FBI is all bought and paid for. We know there's a host of them floating around the 2020 election, 9/11, the Sandy Hook children are still alive out there somewhere. But the earth is flat. John, I cannot thank you enough for that colossal super chat. Cannot thank you enough. Thank you. But the earth is flat. MAGA. Listen, I've heard folks joke around that MAGA are uneducated, but I don't believe that most MAGA believe that the earth is flat. I mean, we have satellites, folks. You can actually view the earth from in space. I gotta assume that's not true. By the way, before we continue the program on, you actually can prove the earth is not flat your damn self. You can purchase a rather inexpensive model rocket and get it high enough in the sky to see that the earth is curved. I mean, you can do that yourself. Doesn't cost a lot to buy a rocket and put a little bit of a camera on there and take a picture from, maybe a few thousand feet up. I've had drones up beyond the FAA limitations. I think it's 1,000 feet is what the FAA. I've had a drone up to 10,000 feet before. I have drones. I've had them up there that high. You can do it yourself. Anyhow, going back to the comment, vote red, save America. Is America in jeopardy if another Democrat wins? Really? And I'd like to hear how, by the way. we're going to be tackling a bunch of questions because this is a slow news day, but I'm asking, is the Supreme Court, in your humble opinion, is the Supreme Court in President Trump's back pocket? Because it does look like they may, at the very least, give him a delay. If they suggest that this still needs to, there's more to this case, to this immunity plea, or a suggestion, or whatever the hell you want to call it, and it needs to be knocked back down to the appellate court, that throws this out by months. Now, keep in mind, the whole damn immunity case to begin with was pushed out to where it is now. They've already given him a delay before they even started it. This was supposed to happen about a month and a half ago. So if they if they knock it back to the appellate court, they're giving them probably a year or more of a delay. But are they doing that in the name of justice, or are they doing that in the name of MAGA? Secondary question before we get to the box, in the comment section, do you give a damn? Do you care at all if Trump is innocent, guilty, or, in some folks believe, just dealing with a bunch of bullshit charges? Does any of this matter to you at all come election time? In other words, if it turns out that he is a multiple, felon over and over again, does it matter? Or what if it turns out that he was railroaded and did not commit these crimes, and prosecutors got overzealous and charged him anyway? Would it matter? Would it make a difference in regards to your vote? So, happy Friday to all you folks. John, with that incredible super chat, I cannot thank you enough. Program is, always will remain MAGA friendly. We don't block, ban, or censor anyone. You know how the program works. You don't have to agree with anyone in the comments. You don't have to agree with yours truly. It's all about free speech here. We go left of Bernie Sanders, so I'm having dinner with QAnon. We allow everyone to speak. That's how the program is. MAGA are my preferred guests. Nevertheless, liberals are welcome as well. So looking in the comments, no, Trump can do job of president better than anyone before. Wow. Based on what? You believe Trump is doing a better job, or you believe Trump did a better job in his 4 years than Reagan in 8? What are you basing that on? What metric are you basing the notion that Trump has done a better job in his 4 years as president than anyone before? I'd be curious to know. We may have a difference of opinion, but you're entitled to state it here. Gen X, man, you got a 26-inch chain. Yeah, I got a choker on today. Thank you, Gen X, as always, friend of the program. Going to the box right off the bat, is the Supreme Court in the back pocket of the former president, number 45, Donald Trump? Country Hound Dog, thank you, looks dope, Tim. Thank you, Gerard Bullock. Hound Dog, good afternoon.
Afternoon, Tim. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Good to have you back on. Folks are suggesting that the Supreme Court is biased in favor of Trump. What say you?
I don't think it is. I don't think they're in his back pocket. And I would be willing to bet that the people who are saying it's biased in Trump's favor are probably all Democrat voters.
Probably so.
The other way around.
Well, I will say this. I think they're probably going, most of them, overwhelmingly, you're probably correct. The overwhelming majority of them are probably going to be Democrats, but I do believe there are some traditional Republicans, the likes of Chris Christie and some of them that may actually say it as well. We'll see how it comes out because they haven't officially ruled in this case, but I don't think it's going to be 100% Democrat. And I will tell you this, if they rule against Trump, most likely he's going to say they're in the back pocket of the liberals. What say you?
Yeah, you're probably right. That's why I said if it was the other way around.
Yeah.
Hey, there's one question I've been wanting to ask you. I haven't had a chance yet.
Sure.
Okay. We talk about, and you say it all the time, free speech, entitled to your opinion, nobody's blocked, banned, or censored.
True.
What say you about Biden signing the bill to ban TikTok, knowing that it was written by a Republican, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And to get it passed, to get the ban passed, they porked it, they made it pork and added it in on the Ukrainian bill. What is your opinion on that?
I actually think that's...
I advertise my business, East Twin Truck and Trailer Repair, on TikTok. I reach gobs of truckers that way. Okay? And I tell you, I can't say how many come through and say, hey, I saw you on TikTok. Okay? So I get a lot of business that way.
Okay.
And I know you're live. I know you do really good. So, what say you about it? What is your opinion about Biden doing this?
Yeah, I think that is how the system has been ran from day one. Now, remember, Biden's a lifelong politician. He's been in Congress since, I think, the age of 29 before going to the Senate and VP, and now he is president. That's how it's always been ran, is that if you want something and I want something to get this bill passed, there has to be something in it for both of us. That's how. Only when the border bill came along a few months ago, when the Republicans shot it down, were they trying to get a bill that was 100% in favor of what they wanted and was not willing to give anything to the Democratic Party, which is why it fell. But that's how you get bipartisan support. There has to be something in it for both sides.
And you are right. But how do you feel about, them saying, hey, we're going to ban TikTok?
I don't, first of all, as you know, I enjoy being on TikTok. I enjoy having uncensored free speech, certainly with MAGA. Right. But I will say this. TikTok is worth billions of dollars. There are a ridiculous amount of users. They've been given the ultimatum to either sell TikTok or it will be banned. So if they don't sell it in the United States, it's going to become an item of virtually no value. I think it's pretty obvious. They're going to sell it considering how much money they can make. They'll sell it and it will continue on under the hands of an American or something like that. But I don't think it's going to go anywhere.
I will say this. In my opinion, them trying to ban TikTok, well, one, you're right. It's about the money. It is about the money. I'm sure of that. But it does, at that point, you can say they have figured out a way to limit free speech.
But but if they allow an American to purchase TikTok, how do you know that they're going to limit free speech? Keep in mind, Elon Musk, who owns X, is an American that purchased Twitter and increased the amount of free speech. So if we take it from Chinese hands, that don't mean you're going to lose free speech.
Well, that's what the conservatives will agree with you on that. Okay. However, the left-leaning liberals will not. Because right now, TikTok is more liberal favorable versus conservative. You will hear conservatives more conservatives will, I don't want to say censored, but they get pushed to the bottom of the pile where the liberals are pushed to the top through the algorithms. So TikTok is more liberal right now. And videos I have been seeing is the left-leaning losing their marbles over this ban, saying that now they're being censored. But yet, if it does get sold to an American, then you're going to hear the conservatives, crowing about it. But either way you look at it, somebody's going to be getting censored.
I don't know. I don't know if that. I don't feel confident because, like I said, Elon Musk purchased Twitter and turned it into X, and nobody is getting censored on Twitter. If anything, folks are complaining that it's turned into a bastion of hateful comments, but no one's being censored on X. So clearly, an American can purchase a social media page and open it up. I think the issue is X has a lot of racism on it. There is a lot of racial, and that's where the liberals are complaining about. But free speech means letting everybody opinion. Just like the liberals are pro-Hamas in a lot of cases. If you go in liberal circles, you're going to hear pro-Hamas. You're going to hear a lot of pro-LGBT stuff. If you go in right-wing circles, racism is prevalent. That does happen. So free speech has its consequences no matter what side of the aisle you're coming from.
And you're right about that. Yeah. As for the Hamas side, I'll say it. I'm with Israel. That's all there is to it. I don't want to open that can of worms because that's a rabbit hole we'll never get out of.
Yeah.
Okay. We could go on for hours just on that one topic. But as for the LGBTQ stuff, I'll say it right now. And I've got friends who are in that community. Mm-hmm. I served with a guy, PFC Heart.
I know there's a butt coming, though. I know there's a butt coming.
No. That boy turned left so hard, he would not be a wingman for me one night on a double date, okay? However, when the lead flew downrange, that's who you wanted standing beside you. But he never pushed nobody. He never pushed it on nobody. He never said, either you believe what I believe or I'm going to hate you. And unfortunately, the ones who are really, there's a lot of them who are telling the others, hey, sit down and be quiet. We don't want you making noise and causing trouble for us.
I don't know, but here's the issue I have with it. Here's the issue I have.
I'm just saying it's the few within the community that are being the bad apples and causing trouble for all of them.
I don't think it's possible not to cause trouble for them. Now, folks are suggesting they don't necessarily have an issue with the LGBT community. They just don't want it pushed on children. In my opinion, that's false. I mean, you look at what happened when they put a transgender woman or whatever on the front of a beer can. No children are drinking. There's no children drinking beer. And look at the outrage it got. Anywhere the transgender community shows up, the right is going to have a problem with it. I don't care if it's on an album cover. I don't care if it's on a beer can. If it's a drag queen show in the middle of nowhere, they don't want it in their neighborhood. They don't have any type of desire for that community to exist, but they're trying to phrase it as, well, you're hurting kids. I don't think there's no way they can do that.
I mean, I will say, it don't matter who you are. I say leave kids alone. Don't matter who you are.
But there's no evidence of that community trying to hurt kids. It's being like the whole issue.
It's the fact that there has been drag queen shows done at schools, and there have been parents who have took their kids to these shows, and people again have the right to their opinion, to voice their opinion. And say, hey, we don't agree with you putting children into this. We don't agree with you going to schools and exposing kids to this when they're a kindergarten, first, second grade. Mm-hmm. Let the kids be kids. Let them grow up, and they'll figure it out.
Wait, hold on. Here's the issue I have with that. You say, as opposed to exposing children to LGBT concerns, let them be children and they'll make a decision when they become an adult. I get your point. But if you're going to expose children to religion, you're going to expose them to pledging allegiance to a flag, why can't they wait till they're an adult to decide what religion they want to be in or what country they want to pledge allegiance to? I think we're okay with exposing children to things when we favor it. We don't favor the LGBT community. It is discussed towards that community being masked as somehow hurting children.
I've known quite a few adults that have changed from one religion to another.
Right. Why not wait till they are an adult?
That is their choice.
Yeah, but
that is their choice.
But wait a minute. If a child can handle religion, and by the way, Sodom and Gomorrah, all that stuff's in the Bible as well. If a child can handle all of the drama in religion, what's wrong with a drag queen show?
Give me a second to think so I can say this right, because
okay, go ahead.
A lot of the drag queen shows are a little too exposed. Okay, mm-hmm. I don't want to trigger TikTok to boot me or ban me.
Understood.
Okay, so they're a little too exposed. Okay, now I've seen drag queen movies, RuPaul, but you don't see RuPaul twerking in front of kids. And that's where it becomes an issue, is when it becomes that overly exposed portion that should not be. Okay, just cross-dressing in front of kids, most people really didn't care about it. But when they start getting down and dirty, I guess, that's when people started getting mad.
Okay.
And that was being done.
Okay, now here's the issue I have with it. I understand your concern about exposing children to issues of the LGBT community, but I compared it to Christianity and exposing children to the Bible. In the Bible, because you want to protect children from being exposed, as you say, they talk about Sodom and Gomorrah. I don't know what that story is about, but it sounds like some pretty gay shit. Sodom and Gomorrah, people burning forever in hell. They talk about slavery, they talk about adultery, and they talk about murder. Cain and Abel, all of that, you're exposing children to all of that, but some dude wearing makeup, dancing around is too much. I don't get it.
It's not the dancing around part, it's the clothing that they're wearing while doing so. Because genitalia is almost actually fully exposed. It's not completely, but it's like that borderline, and that's the shows that conservatives have really gotten mad at. I have seen places where I've seen, cross dressers, and I've seen regular people walking right along with them, and no problems. It's when they go to the extreme of dancing to the point where things are almost exposed is when people were getting mad at them.
Well, but then I'm gonna have to move it on. But then
I'm worried about Sodom and Gomorrah and all that. And
is it wrong? Is it wrong to expose them to all of the controversial issues of religion?
I mean, controversial issues of religion.
Yeah.
Controversial issues are always meant to teach.
What are you trying to teach? When you teach, wait, hold on. The Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments talks about thou shalt not commit adultery. Why the hell do you need to teach an elementary school kid about not committing adultery? He's not even thinking about a spouse or a girlfriend at that point. What are you talking about? I don't get it.
When I was young, and I went to church and Sunday school. I didn't go all the time. I did go sometimes. I was never taught about Sodom and Gomorrah and that stuff when I was young. That was held back until I was much older.
But it's in the book. If you wanted to, if you as a child said, "Mom, can I have a Bible?" Just about any church would give you one. It is in that book. According to what you're saying, the Bible should be a banned book because it exposes children to all this stuff.
It exposes them to the what's the word I'm looking for here? I'm trying to find the right word. It exposes them to the controversies and to the things they say, hey, look, they did this and this was their consequences. So, and just like nowadays, people are saying, hey, look, if these drag queen shows go too far, there is consequences.
Yeah.
And that's the closest I can bring that.
Yeah, I think
I agree with you. The Bible is full of controversy.
Yeah,
so is the Quran, and so is any of them. They're all full of controversy.
I'm just going to say this, because there is a hell of a lot of cultures on this planet where children are allowed to see genitalia, and those children don't come out screwed up. There's a lot of societies where toplessness is norm, and children do get exposed to genitalia, and the kids aren't ruined. I don't think it's an issue about hurting children. I think it's an issue about going against Christian views is why we don't want kids exposed to this, because they're exposed in other cultures, and they're not turning out crazy.
And you're right. I've been overseas. I've lived overseas. And now I will say and it is totally different to America. They do also observe courtesies. Single adults who are not dating or not married go to single beaches. They don't go to family beaches.
But you know what I mean. I mean, you can watch. If you're up at 10 o'clock and you were in England when I was a kid, you could watch the Benny Hill show and they showed titties. I mean, the kids in England didn't turn out crazy.
Italy has the naked news.
Yeah. So this is Christianity.
Right.
Okay, I do got to move it on, country outlaw, but that's Christianity making those judgments. I don't think it's based on any psychiatry. It is based on Christians saying a child should or should not be able to see or do this. I got to move it on, though. Anytime, come on back through.
All right.
And
Ask more about the TikTok ban.
we'll talk about it throughout the show. But as I said, I do believe the TikTok ban is a bipartisan bill passed by Biden. And other than MAGA, I believe most of the Republicans were in favor of the TikTok ban. And in fact, President Trump, when he was actually commander-in-chief, tried to have TikTok banned and had it shot down. So even Trump was once in favor of the TikTok ban. Now that it's done by Biden, my guess is he's not in favor of it now, but he tried it too. Gen X on YouTube. To be fair, the Bible isn't written in a manner easily understood by children without explanation. You could make that theory on a lot of things. I mean, fact is, it is written that way. I mean, it is accessible to children. How hard is it, let's say, for a 5th or a 6th grader who doesn't understand passages in the Bible because it's written in that Latin nature to have it translated online? I think that's pretty easy to do. So the idea that a child cannot interpret the Bible, not in today's world, would be pretty easy. I mean, they make Bibles, by the way, that are designed for children to read, but it's not that hard to go online and look up a passage and get it translated into plain English for a child to understand. And the Bible covers all sorts of topics that a child should not be exposed to. Like I mentioned, murder and theft and Sodom and Gomorrah, people turning into piles of salt. And I mean, it's horror. It's like a house of horrors. I don't understand how the drag queen is getting all of the attention and we can exclude that. I think we expose children to adult issues when we favor them. And before I move on, I'll tell you, we all used to say, I put your hand on your heart. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America. And what is it? And to the republic for which it stands, one nation. How many elementary schools understand what that shit means? How many elementary school students know what it means to pledge allegiance to a nation? How many kids know what that even means? That's indoctrination. What you're doing is you're hoping by forcing that child to pledge allegiance, it will sink in so that when they're 17, 18, maybe they'll join the selective service and become a patriotic American, which is good, but it is indoctrination. You are indoctrinating that child. So when folks say, I don't want things forced on my kid, we've been forcing things on our child since day one. We just don't like the LGBT community. But we're trying to say other things. Just come on and say it. Come on and say, I think what they're doing is a sin and I don't like it. I think at least that would be honest than trying to beat around the bush and suggest it's about saving kids and all this other crap. Just be honest about it. Nick, thank you. I don't know if I deserve to win, but thank you very much. Moving on. The truth will set you free. So is the SCOTUS pro-Trump? A lot of folks on the left is saying that. The folks on the right disagree, but the folks on the left, truth will set you free, are saying the SCOTUS is pro-Trump. What say you?
Well, I'm going to say that the SCOTUS is definitely leaning for Trump, but maybe not on this issue of immunity because I've heard some of the arguments already, and they're making some good points against why he shouldn't have it, which kind of gets me back to what I wanted to talk about. Because I mean, if Trump had won the 2020 election, he would have immunity right now. I mean, he probably would have already shot somebody on Fifth Avenue. So I mean, I'm being dead serious about it because he know he had that kind of power when he's in office, and Well,
what you're saying though is kind of frightening. I mean, if he is reelected, what are you expecting then?
Well, more of what we already got from him in his first term, but it is just going to be worse. Like he was committing espionage against his own country, going by what we see as evidence, all the boxes and everything on the floor, and people moving boxes from from his
But you don't have any proof that he was committing active espionage. He has documents in his home that folks are suggesting he had no right to have. But espionage, you think he was selling them to someone else, or
what is he being charged with? He's being charged with violating the Espionage Act. So I mean, therefore, that's what they think he's doing. Wow. They wouldn't charge him with that if they didn't think that's what he was doing, and we got plenty of evidence that he was up to no good with those documents, because there's really nothing else he could do with them but sell them. I mean, what else could he do with them? Wipe his butt?
So you really genuinely believe, and you are right, they did charge him with violating the Espionage Act, but do you really believe that Trump is so corrupt he would give other entities some of our most sensitive information? You think he would share that with the wrong people?
Of course he would.
Wow.
Of course he would. I mean, he's about wanting to be a billionaire and staying a billionaire. So, all
right, I don't know what happened on TikTok. For my YouTubers, for some reason, the live went down. It might have been because we talked about the LGBT community a lot. I'm going to try to go ahead and file an appeal. Now, we do have a backup page. I'll submit the appeal for a quick. Sometimes we win the appeals right away. I don't think there was enough there. Could have been somebody in the audience complaining. It does happen sometimes. You know, I don't block, ban, or censor anyone. But nevertheless, some of the programs, we do have this happen occasionally. I will see what ended up taking place with the appeal. Yeah, they got it on there for hate speech and hateful behavior. Now, I did use the term. Folks might as well just come out and say, I hate the LGBT community or something like that. They may have flagged that and deemed what I was saying as hate speech, which clearly I was not, but we'll see what happens. I'll give it a minute or so. If it doesn't come up, we'll go to the backup account. I have a few less followers on that account, but there is certainly enough to run a damn program. I think we probably have about a fourth of what we have on the main page, so probably 30,000 people. So we'll see what happens. Give it a second. While we doing that, basketball. Have no problem reading your comments here on YouTube. Trump sells classified documents. I need to see evidence of that. Where's the evidence that Trump sells or has sold a classified document? So Biden was selling documents he wasn't even authorized to have. And once again, where's the evidence of that? Jack Wagon. Look, folks, this is where I tend to fall in the middle. I can see good and bad on both sides. I need to see evidence before we throw out phrases like Trump sold documents or Biden sold documents. Some of this sounds just like demonization of the opposition. I don't think there's any evidence that Biden or Trump sold documents for profit or something of that nature. I'd have to see the evidence of it. Now, having them in your possession, which apparently Joe Biden, Mike Pence, and President Trump are guilty of, we can discuss that, but that doesn't mean they sold them. So that's taking somewhat of a leap to suggest they actually sold them. It looks like the appeal wasn't approved, so I guess they didn't like our conversation about the LGBT community. So we'll go on over to the background page, or better yet, the backup account, and see if we can continue where we left off. We're talking about, is the Supreme Court in the back pocket of President Trump? The liberals seem to think that, but the folks on the right disagree. So 3, 2, 1. What up, folks? Once again, it's your boy Tim. We had a issue with the main page, so while folks began filtering in, we are also on YouTube. For my TikTok viewers, this is obviously the backup account. By the way, for you folks on YouTube, you know the program is run under the Handsome Liberal on TikTok. That's where all the callers and everything else comes from. But if you take off the last L, which will make it look like it says the Handsome Liberal, that's the backup account. So we have 2 accounts on TikTok. So if one has the problems that the other one just did, we have a second place to go. So as folks are beginning to filter in, I see Angle Gaming. You asked what happened. The feed went down, most likely because me and my last guest got into a deep discussion about the LGBT community. There's a couple issues that will cause your stream to go down. and I think there's 3 topics if you discuss on TikTok will cause you to have issues, and I don't think it was MAGA. If you're discussing the LGBT community, coronavirus and the vaccine, and there's a third issue I often bring up. It's the LGBTQ issue, the coronavirus and the vaccine. There's a third one I'll remember in a minute. But if anytime you're discussing one of those issues, you have a chance of getting taken down on TikTok. And we were deeply discussing religion in the LGBT community, and they took the live stream down. Now MDJ says anything about Trump. I talk about Trump all damn day. That's the first time I've been taken down for I think about 6 months. So no, it's not talking about Trump. It's talking about sensitive issues. Like I said, the vaccine is one. The LGBT community is another. I wouldn't be surprised if Hamas and Israel becomes one as well. Haven't discussed that as much, but I wouldn't be surprised. So moving on, is the SCOTUS in Trump's back pocket? Play Ass Gonna Play says they suppressing our voices. Well, that certainly was a good example of that. Furback and Angle Fan Gaming, you guys are in the box. We'll go ahead and go straight to the box. Angle Fan Gaming, good afternoon. Angle Fan, are you there?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear. So okay. I'm assuming our discussion of the LGBT community is what took it down. But let me ask you, do you think the Supreme Court is in the pocket of Trump?
No. I mean, it is majority Republican, but I don't think they're just going to side with him just because of that reason.
Yeah. Do you think a majority liberal Supreme Court would be siding with a liberal? You think that would be fair as well?
No, I think they would be. I think they would agree with leftists automatically.
So you believe that the right is, for the most part, fair and unbiased, but the left is incapable of that?
Yes, because I mean, just look at most of the judges. You look at the like voting in the districts in New York and DC, and you look at the judges that are in those areas for Trump's cases, and you see, I think it's in DC, it's like 90% Democrat. That's why it's so hard to get fair, jurors.
Oh. So I understand what you're saying. If you're in a left-leaning area, the system may lean left, but I don't understand why you think if you're in a right-leaning area, it's not going to go right. I mean, if you're in a right-leaning area, they're tougher on crime. They don't really favor social issues. I mean, they lean right in right-leaning areas. I think where I'm disagreeing with you is that liberals are biased and Republicans are unbiased. I don't buy into that. I think both sides do it.
Well, I think the difference is because Republicans are about law and order, and they believe in that, and they want to go by the law and what the law says, and what if this is what it is, that sucks for us. If we lose, okay, but we're going to go by that.
Did you see what happened on January 6th?
Yeah, and that's a perfect example, because a lot of those things should have been like, okay, they broke those windows. That should be like trespassing, a couple charges, depending on what the charges were. But a lot of them got solitary confinement. They got extended periods of time, like years in prison.
Well, but if you're saying,
that's excessive.
If you're saying you're going to go by what the law says, then Trump lost the 2020 election. That's what the law is saying. Even the Republican judges say he lost the 2020 election. I don't think he is doing what you're suggesting the Republicans do.
Okay, but there's a difference. Like when Trump says something, like he said, I never lost an election. I never lost an election. That's Trump's opinion. That's Trump's free speech. Now, the judge taking that offensively, he's supposed to be law and order. He's supposed to have an unbiased opinion. He's supposed to be like, I'm a judge. I'm a professional. I'm going to look at the books. This is what happened. Trump, you're not supposed to be biased against him. Yes, he's coming off as a bad guy or whatever, but you're supposed to be the professional. You're a judge,
So let me ask you then, if the judge issues a gag order not to talk about the jury, not to talk about witnesses, and Trump violates it, what do you believe the judge should do?
And that's hard, because I believe in the constitutional rights and I believe in free speech, but I don't know enough about it
to say, because I don't know how that works. I know we have constitutional rights, and I believe that should be absolute. But I also know that judges do have gag order rights, and I don't know if that stops our constitutional rights. I don't know how that works legally.
Here's the issue. If let's say, for instance, you got Al Capone or the Teflon Don or somebody on trial, and you allow that man to say whatever he wants to say, you do understand people could get hurt. If you got a mob boss on trial and he can tell you about witnesses, where they live and where they work, you do realize that could translate into dead witnesses, right?
Yeah, but I mean that could also work against him both ways. Like that could look bad for him. The media could use that against him, and that could be good. He could rile up his base. But people are dying. Doesn't matter how they judge it. He's getting people killed. Yet you're right that if somebody dies, it may make him look bad to the jury. But somebody is dying. You don't want that happening, do you? Just in the name of free speech. But here's the thing. It's the same thing. If I'm weak enough to go by what someone else is saying and act off of his, I am responsible for my own actions. So if I'm like, oh man, I'm very upset with what that person's doing, so I'm gonna jump off a bridge. I killed myself now. Is it Trump's fault that I just killed myself?
It's not.
It's the same argument.
No, it's not his fault. But based on what you're saying, how could the courts ever try someone that is a powerful individual? I mean, would you want to serve on a jury trying to convict a big, well-known drug dealer or something like that when he has the right to tell people where you live at? Would you serve on that jury?
Yes, because I would believe in the justice system. I would believe in the security of that building, of the police, of the people that there protect me.
And you think your family, your home, your kids, all of them are being protected as well?
Yes, because I believe in the Second Amendment. All my family have guns.
You think you're going to take on a crime lord with the guns you got in your house?
And, I mean, I don't know what they got.
Have you ever heard of David Koresh? Have you ever heard of David Koresh in
Waco? I also heard about the FBI that brought tanks and killed him in his own church. Yeah.
Right. If they're trying some major drug lord, there's nothing you have in your house that's going to defend you if they want to take a Sakara or something. Like, you're dead. You're dead. Period. You can hit one and they got 100 more.
Okay, and then they made me a martyr, and now I'm going to be on the news, and they're the asshole.
And that's what you tell your family. At least we're going to be martyrs when they get in here. Don't worry, little baby. We're going to be martyrs once. What are you, Al-Qaeda? What are you, Al-Qaeda?
Right? I'm going to be hiding under rocks, fucking little tripwires.
All right, well, let's get back on track. You get what I'm saying. Is that if you allow someone to spill the beans on a witness, everybody's not going to be like you where they got a house full of guns and the 2-year-old knows how to handle a rifle. Everybody else does not want to be outed if there is a major controversial figure that is facing prison time. You can't grant free speech to that level. I mean, and that's what Trump is trying to, that's what he's flirting with, is trying to say, I have a free speech right to put these people in jeopardy.
Well, here's the thing. Like, the government and all these companies own our information anyway. So they can use that leverage to control us in any way they want. So, like, we can literally be controlled and leveraged in any way. So, like, there's no real safety unless we create it ourselves.
I don't get what you mean.
That's, like, all right, so say the government wants us to do whatever they want. They have all this information on Facebook, on TikTok, or like they share our information.
Right.
People know where you live, where your kids live, where I live, my kids live. All our stuff is shared all the time. They sell it and make money. So if the government says, you know what, I'm going to sneakily get information on this guy, and I'm going to, do things to him. I'm going to go after him.
And, I mean, that could happen, but at least in that case, they have to do it, under the cover of darkness. Trump is saying I should be able to out these people in the open. He's saying I should be able to give out their information in the open.
Well, yes, because he's doing it as a former president, because he's protected by the Secret Service with the supremacy protection.
So let me just make sure I get clarity from what you're saying. You're saying that if Trump wants to give out all of the juror addresses, this should be free speech.
That I'm not 100% sure, because I think those are protected. But if he had that information, he could, yes.
No, he can't. If the judge if the judge says you can't talk about the members of the jury, you can't talk about the members of the jury. Just like when they tell the jurors during recess, you can't discuss the trial with anyone outside of court. They don't have free speech rights to say, well, I have that information, so I can talk about it. They are gagged when they leave the court.
Well, who screwed up and gave them that information?
They're in the court case. They're sitting there. They're actually watching the case.
See, I didn't know that off the top of my head. I didn't know that they tell Trump every juror's name.
No. Well, he's sitting there looking at them. I'm not saying he knows their names, but he can describe them. I mean, there's things he can do. He shouldn't be able. They say you cannot discuss the jury. For instance, he suggested that 95% of the juror members are Democrat. He doesn't know that. He doesn't. There's no evidence of that. He's making up stuff. He's not even. When you say free speech, he's not even being honest. He's just making up stuff.
But he's going off district statistics. Like in D.C., it's 95% based on voter registration.
Okay, but
in New York.
But that doesn't guarantee the person you're looking at is going to fit in that statistic. You don't know. You might be looking at the 5% of them that's not. You can't just blatantly say something like that.
I mean, he's playing the odds. He's looking at statistics that someone probably handed him. Oh, look, in D.C., the registration says it's 95%.
Well, that ain't even, by the way, that's not true. I don't think that you're talking about in New York, 95% of them are not Democrat. It's not that blue. I mean, that's not even true, first of all. But even if it was, you can't say that because you don't know if this jury is properly representing what the statistics are for this county. You don't know that. Even though the county may be 95%, which I'm sure it's not, but even though the county may be 95%, that don't mean the jury is matched perfectly like that. I mean, what he's saying is completely false. He does not know that. It's based on nothing other than, well, I think this is a blue area, so I'm going to say this.
Well, he's not pulling it out of his butt. He's going off of the same thing I've seen.
He doesn't know if it's... But he doesn't know if it's accurate or not. There's no way to know what he's saying is that it may be completely inaccurate.
Well, you know damn well, just like I do, just like Chicago, just like New York, California, those are blue areas. And then the statistics that I have seen, just like I'm sure Trump has looked up and has his researchers or whatever, closer to the DC area. And, you know, it's very blue. And the numbers I have heard for DC is in the 90s. I don't know if it's 90 or 95.
I don't think you understand what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the jury, which was picked by both Trump and the prosecution, that jury may not be politically representing what the county is. I mean, they picked out people. Because you had a Republican supporter in regards to Trump's lawyers, they're not going to pick out the left-leaning folks if they can avoid it. There's no way to know if that jury is represented by the statistics in that town. I mean, there's just no way to be sure you're being accurate. Trump is just belting out a guess. He's literally just guessing by saying that.
Yeah, and it's also hard to tell where they picked from, like how far did they go from D.C.
Right, so all of that goes back to what I said. He is just guessing at best. He shouldn't be able to do that. He should not be able to do that. And then he also made it clear that the jury, he also said something to the tune of the jury has it in for him. He doesn't have any evidence of that. I mean,
all right, but say it isn't 95%. But I guarantee you it is a majority, Blue. It is a majority just because it's D.C. That's like going to New York. I understand Trump like pretty much lived in New York most of his life and all that. Maybe there's a little favor for him. And I heard that he's going to be campaigning for Newark, trying to win New York.
But at the end of the, I do got to move it on. But at the end of the day, Angle fan, the judge said she cannot talk about the jury. You cannot talk about the jury. All it is, the area is mostly. They said you cannot talk about the jury. What should the judge do if he's violating the gag order?
I mean, she should try to do whatever she could do, but I think the bottom line is she can't do nothing because if she tries to put him in jail, she won't be able to because the Secret Service Supremacy Act pretty much says that anywhere Trump is, the Secret Service has to come in and take over that whole floor.
Okay, then give him a floor and tell him you're gonna be on this floor until Monday morning. Give him a damn floor.
And that would be fine. And then you will make him even more popular and more of a voter. I mean, did you see how when he got his picture taken, the polls went up? When he got, he sold his shoes. With everything they do to him, he goes up in the polls.
I got to move it on. I'll respond to it on the other side, but I do appreciate you coming in. Always welcome back. Thank you. I will say this. He's not the only one that suggests that every time something happens to Trump, it draws up his poll numbers and increases his support. I'm at odds with that. I believe it's kind of like how you would view your child. You love your child, but if your child is being railroaded by the government, it draws you closer to your child. It's not making more people love your kid. It's just making you love your kid even more because you know what's going on is wrong in your eyes. I don't believe it's actually bringing more supporters to Trump. What I think it's doing is it's strengthening the amount of support that folks already were going to vote for him have. That's what I believe is doing. I don't believe it's bringing more folks to Trump. I'll tell you this. I've never heard of anybody that is going to switch their principles as an American because somebody's being railroaded by the system. I'll ask you folks the same question I often ask for my beloved MAGA before we go back to the box. Before my folks on the right, think about how you feel about Nancy Pelosi or Hillary Clinton as the nation's commander-in-chief. It probably grosses you out. If you're on the right, particularly MAGA, the idea of Nancy Pelosi or Hillary Clinton being president probably makes you want to puke. You can feel it in the back of your throat. Now imagine if you were 100% confident, without a shadow of a doubt, 100% confident, despite how you think about them, that they were being charged for something you were 100% confident that they didn't do. Somebody was trying to put them in prison for the rest of their life for something you were certain they didn't do. Would that make you want to vote for them? Would that draw you to vote for Nancy Pelosi because the system was mistreating her? I would submit to you, you wouldn't. I would think you probably wouldn't because your principles are exactly the opposite of how Nancy Pelosi or Hillary Clinton would govern. You're not going to govern somebody that you believe is a threat to the Second Amendment or you believe is in favor of, about to say executing, but is in favor of allowing abortion in the 9th month. Some of the things you may believe. You're not going to vote for them because the system is railroading them. And I would submit to you the same applies to President Trump. You think a woman that is pro-choice is going to vote for Trump because the system is railroading? No. She's going to stick to the candidate that's pro-choice. Whatever your principles are, you're going to vote for that. You're not going to vote for this dude because the system is railroading him so that he can become president and then go against everything you want. He's not going to reward you by voting for him, by supporting your principles. He's going to get in office and continue going against you. So I don't believe anybody would do that. But looking in the comments, can a biological man have a baby? Show me your evidence. D-Town Designs. You guys be having hellified conversations on YouTube. And by the way, user says the system has railroaded all of us to some degree. And by the way, when the system was railroading other folks, particularly minorities, there was not a lot of love from the Trump camp to minorities that were complaining that the system was railroading them. So all of a sudden he gets railroaded and these same folk, well, now we feel sympathetic to you. I don't think it works like that. I really don't, but I could be wrong. Going back to the box, We'll go to, I think we were working with FSU. Good afternoon. Welcome to we're on the backup page. Tap the screen. Hopefully to get the numbers up. It's going to be a smaller crowd because we're on the backup page. FSU.
I don't know.
FSU.
I don't know what the fix would be for that.
Okay. Apparently FSU is on the phone with someone else. So we'll keep it moving. Stick the ruler. Good afternoon, Stick. Definitely for you folks, tap the screen. It'll help bring some of the folks.
Told me, oh no, it's not them. It's 14.
Stick.
Well, Sam lives downstairs.
That's the second one.
And there's a Sam over there.
That's the second guest that I got that was on the phone. Okay, let's try it again. Wow, that's crazy. We don't normally get that. We were talking to the Truth Will Set You Free when the account went down. Let's see if we can make it happen on this side. Truth. Good afternoon. If it brings you up.
Sir, thanks for bringing me back up. We were having the perfect phone call and somebody hung up on us.
The perfect phone. You know, the last guy who said he was having a perfect phone call got impeached for it.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, so I guess I'm next.
So, where were we? We were talking about whether Trump has the Supreme Court in his back pocket.
Right, which on the issue of immunity, I don't think he does, but on other issues, I think that he does.
Give me an example. Give me an example. What other issue?
Well, of course, anything deal that would be like something the right is in favor of, like the abortion thing. That pretty much showed that is skewed towards him.
Well, let me ask you that. If you believe that anything the right is in favor of, Trump has the Supreme Court in his back pocket, the right may be in favor of getting rid of same-sex marriage. You think the Supreme Court would help him do it?
Getting rid of same-sex marriage?
It only started in 2015. We got rid of abortion or gave it back to the states. That's been around for 50 years. Same-sex marriage has only been legal since 2015. I would assume it's easier to get rid of that than abortion because there's a hell of a lot of even liberals that are not very big on the LGBT community.
Right, yeah. I definitely think he would definitely, I mean, the court would definitely go with getting rid of that if that's what he pushes. You know, issues like that and stuff like with the Agenda 47 and Project 2025, which I think they kind of probably renamed those documents because we saw in 2018 when they overturned Roe v. Wade that some of that Project 2025 stuff was already starting to happen because this thing has been in the works for a long time as far as some of the stuff that they came up with, and it makes me wonder how many secret meetings was they having over the years to come up with a 900-page document of ideology or whatever.
But here's the problem I have. Trump is not a traditional Republican. So if Project 2025 or Agenda 47 has been in the works for quite a while, I mean, Trump used to identify as a Democrat, so he is not necessarily part of that crowd. If they've been working on this for quite a while, they weren't working on it with Trump because he still doesn't have a good relationship with traditional Republicans. So this would have been, if it was Mitch McConnell or somebody in there, I could understand. But we're talking about Trump. You think he's down with this stuff?
I think he's down with most of it. Some of it, I don't think so, because I think some of it is just, even for him, it's a little bit on the radical side. You know, so
what do you think is being discussed that is too radical for Trump?
Well, I think some of the stuff that they want, like where they're saying life begins at conception and all that, and they want to, I guess, make that a law or a rule or something. And I don't know if he would necessarily personally agrees with that. So.
Yeah, but if he disagree with it, he'll lose a lot of supporters.
Well, yeah, that's probably true. But I think he would risk losing some supporters if he can gain some liberals like you or maybe me. So
I think the time for Trump to gain some liberal supporters is over with. I don't think that's going to happen. not this late in the game. Maybe in 2016 when he's running against Hillary, but in 2024 he ain't gaining many liberals. I don't think. Maybe the border in some of those few towns like Chicago and in New York, maybe. Outside of the border issues, which most Americans are not dealing with immigrants, I don't think he's going to gain many liberal supporters.
Yeah. Well, I just think when he lost in 2020, basically his agenda basically just got delayed. I mean, when he gets back in, I think he's just going to try to pretty much pick up where he left off, But the 2020 election exposed him for the espionage we were talking about earlier, because as I said before, there's only two things he can do with those documents: either wipe his butt with them, or make some money off of them. So there's no other.
Here's the middle point. Maybe he just wants to keep them as a keepsake. I got a chance to say I own a document showing how a nuclear sub is designed. I mean,
we heard on his perfect phone call. Well, I guess this was the second perfect phone call. Him showing the documents to people who wasn't authorized to see him. So
Kid Rock did that one.
Already is skewing towards, hey, I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing.
Apparently Kid Rock even alluded to, he was showing documents that he should. Real quick, hang on a second before you respond. On YouTube, I see some folks asked, "Am I live on TikTok?" The live on TikTok went down. I'm on the backup page for you folks who have never did not know a backup page exists. It is the handsome liberal minus the final L. So like libera, but the handsome liberal without the final L is where we're at currently on TikTok. So yes, we have a backup page and that's where we're at. So you believe, Truth, that Trump is capable of selling classified material of the United States for profit?
Yes, definitely.
Wow.
I mean, I know that's a strong statement.
Yeah,
and there's going to be a lot of people that's going to disagree, but I mean, there really isn't much else he can do with the documents besides. Like you said, maybe he handed them as a collector, as a trophy, but we heard on his perfect phone call number 2 that he was showing people documents that wasn't supposed to see it. So that already kind of hints towards what his purpose for having the documents were.
Do you believe the documents themselves should prohibit him from ever being president again? That document, if he's guilty in that case, does that case alone, in your opinion?
1,000%. I even would go and say, even just for the fact that he's charged, he should be ineligible, because it takes years. That trial would take years to complete anyway, because it's just so much information there. So, I mean, there's really no way to prosecute it before he would go back in anyway.
I gotta kind of agree with that if you charged with committing an act of espionage, it should have to be adjudicated before you can become president. The idea that you could actually become president while there's still an open espionage case against you is frightening. Now, I understand my beloved MAGA believes it's all made up and fraudulent. I get it. But the fact is, the evidence has not been presented in court. You can become president before they find out whether or not you were a spy. That's kind of frightening. This is why I've said before that after Trump is out of the picture and not running for office, I do believe there will be some anti-Trump laws to prevent people from doing this stuff in the future. But right now, a lot of this country, we love Trump. We want him to be the next president. So we're willing to overlook what should be a given. You shouldn't be able to run for office while you're being accused of being a spy. I totally agree.
And that's the thing too, because you can't even vote if you're a convicted felon. But you can be president as a convicted felon. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I could not agree more. But Truth, I do got to move it on. Well said. Good to have you follow me over here. Feel free for you folks that are new to this side of the app. Go ahead and follow this side as well.
Yeah,
we only come here.
I don't know how I found you.
Yeah, huh?
I don't know how I found you again, but I guess because you're so handsome, it just the filters automatically sent me back to you.
I like it, but it's probably the For You page. It's probably more to do with the For You page. But thank you for coming on over.
And thanks for having me up.
Anytime. Now, real quick on YouTube, in regards to the comment that I made with the last guest, that you shouldn't be able to run until this case is adjudicated. Someone made a statement, I think it was Sandra, which would sound legitimate. She said it's called being innocent before proven guilty. In other words, I haven't been, deemed guilty in a court of law, so you shouldn't be able to punish me for something I have not been convicted of. On its face, it makes sense. But think about it. Imagine if you're going to apply for a job at a bank and you have an open case for bank robbery. You think they should hire you before that case comes to a conclusion? This works nowhere else. It absolutely works nowhere else. You want to hire somebody as a police officer that has an open case for murder that has not come to a conclusion yet? They're still fighting a murder case. You would hire them as a police officer? This does not work anywhere else. This is why I'm suggesting that because we love Trump and want Trump to be president again, we're willing to overlook some things that should be fairly logical. And I've said before I go back to the box, that after Trump is out of the picture, whether he decides not to run, he's running, but whether he wins and is out of the political sphere in 4 years, whether he loses, passes on, whatever the case may be, once Trump is out of the limelight, you will have some anti-Trump laws. That is one of them, is that while you are dealing with potential felony charges, that has to come to a conclusion before you can run for president. Because obviously if you become president, none of that stuff's ever going to be concluded. You're going to get rid of all of that shit. So number one, you can't run for office while you're still up on felony charges. Just like none of us would get hired for a job if we were up on felony charges. I don't know why it changes when you run for president. Number two being, you cannot serve as president while you're incarcerated. I don't know how the hell that is allowed, that you can run for president from jail. I think they will certainly change that in the future. Number three, if you are convicted of committing a crime while serving in the nation's highest office, you can't pardon yourself for the damn crime. I think that also will be a law. And when I say anti-Trump, when I say these, I'm talking bipartisan. I think if we went back 8 years when Hillary Clinton was running, I think everybody on the right would have agreed to this stuff. Everyone on the right would have said that if you're facing federal charges, the way they felt about Hillary Clinton, everything I'm saying now, when Trump was not in the limelight, I believe just about everybody would have agreed with. You can't run if you're facing felony charges. You can't run if you are in prison. You can't pardon yourself for crimes you committed. And of course, you can't run if you already have felonies on your record. Does it make any sense that you, with a felony on your record, can actually be president of the United States, but you can't vote for it? You cannot vote for your own self in a host of states, but you can run the office. Once Trump is out of the picture, I do believe the right and the left will wholeheartedly agree on everything I said. We don't want this to happen again. I think in Trump's case, being a savvy individual who has been very good at finding and exploiting loopholes, he's found some that I think even the founding fathers never thought somebody would do. I don't think they ever expected somebody to do what he's doing. But I do believe once he's out of the picture, they will get rid of that. Now, in the comments, John Call says, if what you're saying is true, the opposition will just charge you for felony. Well, here's the issue, though. You're not going to get a whole, if you just want to randomly charge a presidential candidate for a felony to prevent him from running, you're not going to get the whole court system to agree with that. You're suggesting that, let's say, for instance, a lot of folks on the Democratic side don't want Kennedy to run. I don't believe you would get a bunch of folks just willing to pin felonies on Kennedy, even Democratic judges. I don't think that would happen. It's never happened before. So I don't buy into the notion it would be that simple. But I get your point, which would lead me to ask you, would you personally hire someone that had a major felony pending. They had no convictions. Officially, they had no convictions. But if you had a business, would you hire somebody who was telling you all of these charges against me are bullshit? And in Trump's case, it's like dozens of them. Like literally, he got like about 6, 7 dozen charges. So somebody show up to your shop, your hardware, your restaurant, they want you to hire them. And they're telling you, yeah, I got cases in DC, I got cases down in Florida. It's all bullshit. Would you hire that person? You would hire, and I see John call and say, yeah, I have hired people with multiple felonies pending. I think you're by far you're not the norm, is what I'm trying to say. Because if something happens at your business where someone is victimized, or something stolen, or any type of crime is committed by that hire, they're going to hold you accountable for that. They're going to ask you, did the 88 charges, was that not a red flag? You hired someone that had all these charges, they committed a crime. They're going to sue you and you're going to lose. This is no different than what they say in liberal cities. You're letting out somebody that's got this huge criminal record and they go out and commit a crime. Is that really a shocker? Is it really a shocker that somebody who has a bunch of pending charges might commit a crime? So I don't believe it. I don't believe most Americans will hire somebody that is in the position of Trump. I believe you are definitely an outlier saying that we would hire somebody with a host of charges. I don't believe that's normal. But we'll go back to the box. I think it says Jason. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program. Talking about President Trump potentially having the Supreme Court in his back pocket. What say you, Jason?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good. Trump having a Supreme Court in his back pocket, is that a possibility in your opinion?
Yes and no. First of all, I want to say I really like your live because instead of going after one person or another, you're more talking about the concepts and what would apply to anybody running. And I really like that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Most people are saying, Trump or Biden, and you're actually talking about the stuff that would apply to anybody running. And that's refreshing.
Well, it's kind of, yeah, I like to get folks to step outside of the individual. It's kind of like, you ever seen Matthew McConaughey and Samuel Jackson, A Time to Kill, where he tells them, close your eyes and imagine the person is white. It's like, take your mindset off of the individual. Just look at it from the outside, and it usually changes the opinion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Some of the solutions, what you were referring to, that some people might call the anti-Trump law, have already been proposed. They've just never gained any traction because it would not help the politicians who've used their offices to get very rich.
So wait a minute. So they proposed banning someone from being president while incarcerated, and they got shot down?
Yes.
Wow. I've never heard that before.
Bush Jr. had a felony record for drunk driving and possession of cocaine, but no one even brought that up during his campaign. So even his opposition didn't really bring it up. And the reason his opposition didn't really bring it up, I don't remember who he ran against the first time, but was because they too had some shady stuff from their past, and they didn't want to be disqualified for the same reason. So that they were bipartisan crooks.
So, and I see in the comments people are saying they did bring it up, but let me ask it to you this way: you believe, like, because Trump is currently being has been indicted for espionage, for spying. You believe that you should still let someone become president without figuring out whether this spying charge is actually valid or not?
Absolutely not. In fact, I want to get right to the heart of some of what you were saying. When you are, as we all know, when you are elected president, you become the commander-in-chief. You essentially become not quite the head of the FBI, but you get to appoint the senior member, and the same for all the other branches. if you were not qualified, if you were not legally qualified with your age, with your education, with your aptitude to be even a peon, even the lowest level member of any of those organizations at all, Trump would not qualify to be a low-level member of the post office. He is not physically capable. I'm serious. Hear me out.
Wow.
The man gets winded when walking across a golf course. The man is obese. Trump is not capable of doing the work of the lowest level person at a post office, realistically. He's just
But what about Biden? Biden?
Biden too. Biden too. I'm with you. I'm not singling out Trump here. I'm talking about politicians across both sides of the aisle. I'm talking about Mitch McConnell. I'm talking about Nancy Pelosi. I'm talking about the Clintons. I'm talking about the Bidens.
Yeah,
Obama. I did not agree with all of Obama's policies. However, the man was fit. The man was smart. The man would have been capable of serving in any of the departments which he would then be overseeing. The man would have been capable of serving in the military had he wanted to, had he gone that route.
Yeah, but based on what you're saying, I mean, you would pretty much eliminate anybody over 70. Real quick before we continue on.
Yes,
Hold on a second. Johnny on YouTube. I didn't realize you had posted a second super chat. Thank you. I apologize for missing that question. We don't have the guest anymore. So Johnny, the app did not advise me of that. So I do want to apologize for you, but absolutely thank you. So what were you saying there, Jason?
Okay. If you cannot, I'll give you an example. All right, what any president is absolutely commander-in-chief of is our armed forces, right? Okay. We all know that and understand that. Now, before you become a member of the armed forces, be it officer or enlisted, no matter what the job is, you have to take an aptitude test. And you have to pass certain height and weight, basic physical health requirements. You have to pass a medical screening. And you have to show them all of your financial history, especially if there's anything classified. No one has more classified access than the president.
Right.
No one should be under a higher scrutiny. The politicians that keep running for the presidency, one after the other, I would say with the exceptions of the Obamas perhaps, but the Clintons, I'm talking both sides of the aisle. I'm talking everybody.
Yeah, but what's your point? I don't get it.
They were just clean.
So what's your point?
Squeaky clean, and I love that about them. But everybody else, including the Clintons, Democrats and Republicans alike, winners and losers alike, they seem to want the office of the president to make them the least accountable. But when you are a police officer, you are expected to be more accountable than the average everyday civilian because of your authority. When you run for a member of Congress, you were supposed to, although they never seem to, you were supposed to hold a higher code of office because you were above people. They don't hold them to that standard. The voters, they say, let the voters hold them, but they're not legally held to that standard, but I think they should be.
Yeah.
So you should have, it's just, if you want someone to run the FBI, the director of the FBI, here's a perfect example. A lot of people criticize, how can this president appoint someone to run the FBI who has no law enforcement experience? Okay, that's a fair question. How can they appoint someone to run to the FBI if they're not smart enough to be a member of the FBI? They have no problem making that point or bringing up those questions when it comes to who a president is appointing to run these services. But they want the president to have an exception, to be exempt from that, because most of the people they like are either too old, not mentally smart enough.
Well, but I will say that you can, if you surround yourself with a knowledgeable cabinet, even if you don't know things, as Trump stated, this is what helped Trump get elected. He promised to appoint the best and brightest. In other words, I don't know everything, but I'll make sure I get the smart. Now, he didn't do this. He failed miserably at doing it, but he promised something that sounded great. In fact, yours truly, I like that. Get the best and brightest in each one of these fields. You don't have to be a genius. You just know. It's kind of like a coach of a football team that is way overweight, can't run or any damn thing. But if you know how to assemble the right team, you can go all the way to the Super Bowl. And that's
There
what
you go.
Trump was promising. He just didn't do it.
Absolutely. So I hear you on that. So someone who maybe they can't play sports now, but they're really great as a coach, but probably at one point they could play.
Not all of them.
Even if it was meagerly, even if it wasn't maybe good enough for a team. But my point being, you have to at least have the mental aptitude, if nothing else.
Yeah.
So, and he doesn't, and neither does Biden, and neither did Bush Jr. Now,
so in other words, I got to move it on, but what you're saying is we're in a bad predicament going forward.
As far as what you said, free and fair, or something that would be great for free and fair elections would be publicly financed elections, because you've got the richest of the rich supporting these people, boosting these people up, drowning out the noise that people without so much funding try to make. And if it's publicly financed elections, no one can buy your vote anymore. No one can hold that over you if you win and demand things from you.
Okay, I got to move it on, but I don't totally agree with that. I'll answer it on the other side, but I appreciate you coming through, Jason.
Thank you for having me on.
Anytime. And the point I was going to make is you can always get money to people. I know a lot of folks agree with what my last caller said. Hell, I agree with them. They need to get money out of politics, but actually trying to do that is virtually impossible. It's like, I've heard folks, these mob movies where they say there's always, everybody has their price. There's always a way to get money to someone. If I can't buy you off, then I'll buy off somebody you care about. I mean, there's always a way. They can give money to people in prison. So the idea is you can't buy off votes. I have a hard time believing that. There is always something you can do or someone you can get to that will actually have the same effect. So I don't know. I don't think you could ever get money completely out of politics. There's always backdoor ways of doing that. Looking in the comments, though, with Trump having the court system, I don't want to hear about injustice for Trump. If Trump doesn't win, you're going to hear about injustice for Trump no matter what. When the Supreme Court, which is 6-3, 6-3 in favor of the Republicans, 3 of them being appointed by President Trump himself. When they refused to hear his case about the 2020 election, he called him a coward. He was already saying things about the Supreme Court. So if Trump doesn't get the ruling he wants, you're going to hear about injustice towards Trump. That's just the way Trump is. Either you do what I say or you're a piece of shit. That's kind of how he runs things. Looking in the comments, though, yeah, but they aren't the ones they are the ones that were hearing the case for. There's nobody new been appointed. Well, Biden appointed the African-American woman. But under Trump, those folks he appointed were still there. And when they didn't want to hear his claim that the election was stolen, because he took that case up to the Supreme Court, he had some choice words for the Supreme Court. If they don't rule in his favor, he's going to say something bad about him. That's what he's going to do. Looking in the comments, stop spamming comments. We see them. Tim probably saw. I didn't see a comment spam, but if I see it, let me know. I don't generally block, ban, or censor anybody. I do believe in free speech, but if you're adding nothing to the program and sending the same thing over and over again, I generally will step up and do some. Looking in the comments, yeah, but it wasn't the 7 that were listening to the trial. Did you watch it? Doesn't matter who they are. If you don't rule in Trump's favor, he's going to have a problem with you. It really, I get your point, but if I don't care if you're related to Trump. If you don't rule in his favor, he got a problem with you, and he's going to say it out to your face. Going back to the box, does he have the Supreme Court in his back pocket? That's what we're asking. American Outlaw, good afternoon. Welcome to the program. I don't know what just happened here. Something froze there. Let's try it again. American Outlaw, if I can make this work. Okay, there we go. Appreciate you folks that are tapping the screen. I haven't solicited that at all on the backup page, but it's probably more important now than ever before because we got a smaller audience. Tap the screen, get the likes up to about 50,000 if that is possible. Certainly smash that like on YouTube. This is an uncensored program, as it is always read, MAGA friendly. American Outlaw, good afternoon.
Hey man, how you doing?
I'm doing good. So you think the Supreme Court is biased in favor of Trump at all?
I mean, if you look at some of their past rulings, you just mentioned the one about 2020's election that would indicate that they're trying to be. I genuinely believe that, you know, the conservative justices are very firmly constitutionalist, and they're going to do what they think stays true to that Constitution, despite public opinion or political pressure. And I think that their rulings indicate that.
Yeah, I got to push back in one case. To me, Clarence Thomas doesn't qualify for that statement. I really believe with his wife doing what she was doing, and him, I think he received quite a bit of gifts from Republican donors. I don't see him as being a constitutionalist. I see him as being on the take. Maybe I'm getting it wrong, but you don't see any issue with that?
I think his wife is definitely, I mean, it would be no more different than if you look at like, and I don't want to use whataboutism, but I mean, you could look at, you know, political elitist, I guess you would call them, the Clintons as a prime example. Different branch of government they served in, but certainly the same principles where they had close, almost cronyism type ties to people that, from the outward looking in without all the facts, appears to be biased in nature. But I don't know how that directly ties to him. I mean, the only thing I heard.
Well, here's the difference, though. Nobody's calling the Clintons constitutionalists. Nobody's saying that they're straight and narrow. You're saying that the Supreme Court is. I agree with you on the Clintons, but nobody's saying that about them.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the only thing that ever came up that I was aware of, unless you know something more than I do, was the plane rides that he took from a Republican donor. That was the only thing, but he reported it. He self-reported it. So I heard he took quite a bit. He never reported his income. I heard he took quite in more than plane rides, whole vacations he was taking and not reporting it as income or anything. I mean, in several of them, not just one. Somebody said his mom's house. I mean, yeah, I would say looking at Clarence Thomas, he took a lot more than a few plane rides. Yeah, I mean, possibly so. But I mean, if you look at the history of Clarence Thomas as a whole, as serving as a justice, I mean, or even the interactions between him and Joe Biden when he was being vetted by the Senate. I mean, the dude is a pretty straight-laced guy, man. I mean, I think especially at that point in time, and since then, if there was anything to come out about him, the Democratic Party would have exposed it long before now. So
maybe they didn't know. I mean, because like with Hillary Clinton, before 2016, I mean, you didn't have Trump going around telling everybody she was a criminal. I didn't hear anything about her drinking infant blood and all this crazy stuff until she ran for president. So sometimes Hillary Clinton has obviously been on the national stage for a long time. So maybe they didn't know. Maybe they did not know about Clarence Thomas.
It's possible, but I mean, like if you look at and I don't know a lot about Clarence Thomas. I mean, I was 9 years old when he became a part of SCOTUS, but I do know a lot about the recent conservative justices because it was in my time when I was very involved in politics. You know, like from Amy Coney Barrett, Neil Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, like these guys, they don't seem persuadable in their opinions.
But do you see them as honest? I mean, when they were asked about Roe v. Wade, do you believe their answers were genuine and honest, that it had been already litigated? They led folks to believe they were not going to relitigate Roe v. Wade. I mean, at this point, do you see them as being genuine in regards to what they say?
Well, if you look at how it was forced into the Supreme Court, they didn't bring it up on their own. It was what happened out in Washington State that ultimately led it to the Supreme Court and forced them to weigh in on it. It wasn't like they called it up, and that was done by liberals. So, and the suit that they brought forth in Washington State that ultimately led it to the Supreme Court and brought it before them, and they had no choice but to make a decision.
Now, you always have a choice. I mean, Trump came up with a million reasons for why he thought the election was stolen, and they didn't litigate that. You always have a choice. They didn't have to relitigate Roe v. Wade based on that case. They could have said, you know, they could have threw it back down to the lower courts and let it stay at that. They didn't have to do that.
I mean, I guess that's a fair assessment, but what they said in their, when they, you know, it ultimately was coming back to the Supreme Court, whether they kicked it back down or not. just based on the trajectory that the case was on. It was inevitable. So they could have kicked it back, sure. Yeah. But ultimately, through appeals, it would have worked its way back up to him. So why kick the can down the road? Let's look at it now while it's here and move on.
But there's no guarantee you could have kicked it back again. I mean, it is what it is. They decided to take their case on. They did not have to do that. I mean, just like with the 2020 election, Trump is going to keep kicking that back to him as much as he could as well. They didn't have to do that. They chose to do that on the first go round.
Flip it on its head, right? If you look at how some of the more liberal justices rule, right? Let's pretend that you used a scenario with the last caller, or maybe the caller before that, where you said, close your eyes and put yourself in the other person's view. Right. Imagine on how some of these liberal justices have ruled on cases, and imagine now that they're the majority on the Supreme Court and how that would fare.
Yeah, if you had liberals on the Supreme Court, you would have the Republicans making the same argument I am, and there's no way in hell they would buy that the liberals are constitutionalists. That it would be exactly reverse. So what I'm saying is, what you're telling me doesn't resonate with me, because I know if it was reverse, it wouldn't resonate with you.
Yeah, and I agree with that. No argument there. I agree with that. But me personally, just because of what my political viewpoints are, I mean, we have three co-equal branches of government, and they all serve a purpose. And the government's purpose as a whole, with all of them working in unison, has not served the American people for the last 50 years or longer. Honestly, since the federal, my opinion, since the New Deal. Where we went away from the gold standard and where we went to a debt-based.
Well, let me interrupt you and just say this. I mean, I hate to say it this way, but I'm black. The last 50 years have been fantastic. All of that other shit you're talking about, I don't want nothing to do with. I get your point, but I don't want to go anywhere near back there. The last 50 years.
No, I don't mean from that viewpoint. I don't mean from race relations or anything like that. I'm talking about in general how the government functions. How many bureaucrats are embedded in our government now, how many three-letter agencies there are in our government, to what extent they have on our tax dollars.
But I go back to the same statement I just made. All of the stuff you're talking about, I had no input on it back then. No input. Yeah. I couldn't even say whether what you were saying was right or wrong. They would have looked at me and said, who gives a damn what you have to say? So go ahead.
You got a voice now, and you're using it for good, and I do appreciate your show, and I do appreciate how you allow people with opposing views, and you challenge people on both sides. So I do appreciate that. We probably won't agree on this for the obvious reasons you stated. If the roles were reversed, I would feel the same way that you probably do about the conservative justices. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the fact that you're willing to have calm, demeanored conversations is greatly appreciated, and we definitely need more of it. So keep doing what you do, brother, and I'm going to keep watching your show because I thoroughly enjoy it.
Is certainly an honor, American Outlaw. Thank you very much. Doors always open to you.
Yes, sir. Have a good day and a good weekend.
You too. Same. So moving the program on, and that's how we run the program, by the way, folks. It's an uncensored format. We go left to Bernie Sanders to him having dinner with QAnon. Understand you don't have to agree with anybody in the comment section. You don't have to agree with the host here. It's all about free speech. Program will be MAGA friendly. Lisa, thank you very much for the heart. It always will be MAGA friendly. Been that way since day one. MAGA are my preferred guests. Nevertheless, liberals are welcome as well. Looking on the comment section on YouTube, we run a simulcast on YouTube. So for you folks that are not aware, we're also simultaneously on YouTube. Remember to hug your fellow trans kid, says Seawolf with a flag for the transgender community. Remember to hug your fellow trans kid. Wow. I would just say this. Baby steps. That's my recommendation, particularly for the transgender community. Baby steps. When you start talking about fucking with people's kids, it hurts your whole damn movement. Baby steps. Just first allow people to allow you to be treated as a human being. Baby steps. Don't go after nobody's kid. Now, I'm assuming you might be a troll. I'm assuming you're probably on the right and just doing that to demonize the community. But if you're not, baby steps. But I don't believe the individual that type that is an ally to the community. I believe that is hatred masked as a transgender individual. Looking in the comments though, now I got a story, but I wasn't always about it. I don't quite get that. What up, King? Keep the stream up. Thank you for that compliment there. The only thing anyone knows about QAnon is what the leftist media has told them. That's not true, BTK. That's absolutely not true. Because I talk politics to folks on both sides of the aisle, extreme left all the way to extreme right, I've received a lot of the Q cables that were coming out right after the 2020 election about the military was going to arrest Nancy Pelosi and put Trump back in. I mean, all of that stuff was coming through. And it came across in a fashion that appeared to be like an Eric Snowden, where you got somebody who is on the inside and they're telling you, giving you the heads up about what's going to happen. So it looked like somebody on the inside was trying to tell everybody what was going to take place. The crazy thing is, no matter how much shit they were saying that did not come true, like Trump was going to become president again in August of 2021, he was going to be officially the president. Some folks said he was going to be like the 17th or 18th president. They had a way with the alphabet pertain to it. The crazy thing is, no matter how many things failed, there was always another thing that was about to happen, and it was odd that folks kept believing it. It led to me asking some of my Trump supporters, how many lies do you need to hear before you start to believe this person don't know what the hell they're talking about? How many things they're going to tell you when that date comes up and it doesn't take place and they give you another date out in the future? How many of these has to go wrong before you start saying maybe this individual is not a reliable source? It was about 20 of them before they finally stopped sending out Q cables. But, it is what it is. I think people do know what Q represents. I saw that, but who was saying it? It was the FBI in charge. There's no evidence of that, BTK. It's all belief. I just seen a video that said Biden is not going to be on the presidential ballot for Alabama. And it's not the only state he forgot to register in time and is not going to be on the ballot. Removing Biden from the ballot in Alabama is like removing Trump from the ballot in Illinois. It ain't going to make a damn bit of difference. Biden is not going to win Illinois. Now, if they can remove Biden from the ballot in a swing state, we may have a discussion, but okay, we have to figure out which states that he allegedly did not register in time. And I'll just tell you this, if it's a state that's in play, they'll probably come up with a way of letting him register even if it's late. The reason why a state like Alabama will say you didn't register in time, too bad, so sad, is he wasn't gonna win there anyway. The states that care about him would not hold that against him. They would come up with a way of letting him vote around that. Same if it was reversed in favor of Trump. They would hold him accountable technically to any violation as well. So now I see in the comments D01 Nice, they call me D Nice, is saying that he will be on the ballot in Alabama. Fair enough. I don't think it's going to matter. He's not going to win Alabama. He's not going to win Alabama. Looking in the comments, they didn't think he was going to make it this long. That's why he was late. I've had people tell me Biden would have been dead by now. I've had people say that he was going to pass away. I had people tell me I was going to be deceased by now because I got the booster shot. I had, speaking of Q, someone tell me that the likes of myself and millions of others would have been deceased by December of 2021 because we got boosted. It was allegedly poor. That was a Q cable, by the way. Q cable. And I had a couple of people who really believed that. There was going to be a whole lot of deaths. And I'm talking millions, not this bullshit we got now. Millions of people were going to lose their lives because they have been vaccinated. That was a Q cable. Going back to the box, continuing the program on, we will go to Faith. Good afternoon, Faith. Welcome back to the program. The Supreme Court in Trump's back pocket. What say you, Faith?
I didn't mean to go live. I'm sorry.
Okay, not a problem. But you are welcome anytime you want. I'll go ahead and drop you if my device lets me. Okay. Many people got the placebo. Miss Margot, many people got the damn vaccine as well. Where are all the bodies? Where are all the bodies? That's what I've been asking from day one. They didn't all get the placebo. Over 150 million people in this country will tell you something was put in their arm. It wasn't all placebo. Over 150 million people, half the country's been vaccinated. Even if 1% of them perish, that's a lot of carcasses to hide. It didn't happen. It just didn't happen. I do know someone that died one day after they got the shot at 41. Yeah, but you should know millions of people that died. I mean, if you give millions of people the vaccine and you only know one dude, that's really, really good odds. Just keep in mind, you suggesting in the comments, user said you know someone that perished after getting vaccinated. You probably know hundreds of people that have been vaccinated. You probably have folks floating around your orbit all over the damn place that has been vaccinated. The idea that you only know one says exactly what I'm stating. Everybody out here, everybody tuned in right now, you should know dozens of people that perished due to this because they all been vaccinated. It's very few Americans that don't know at least 10 or 15 people that's been vaccinated. Everybody should know people that perished. So the idea that you don't shows it was quite effective. Looking in the comments, and certainly quite harmless, that you don't know people dropping. Half the country has had something jabbed in their arms. There should be bodies. I'm talking, it would be like mass graves and shit, because there's no way to put all those folks. It would be really bad if it was as bad as folks suggested. It's clearly not. Going back to the box, thank you folks that are tapping the screen. We'll go straight to Stick the Ruler. There we go. Supreme Court.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, good to have you back this time. Supreme Court in his back pocket. What say you?
I feel the 6 right-leaning justices are in his back pocket.
All 6?
I think, yeah, I really do. I mean, you may have, out of the 6, you may have 2 out of the 6 that may be kind of side-eyeing Donald Trump. But for the most part, I believe that they're going to follow suit with the other 4. So,
I believe he has a really good chance of getting most of what he wants. Certainly from the 3 he appointed and Clarence Thomas. I believe, is it Roberts? I think the one that came from the Bush era. I don't know if I'm confident with him. But even without him, you still got a 5-4 majority. So it's looking good. It's looking good for him.
Well, yeah, but I mean, again, you still got Clarence Thomas. To me, that he should recuse himself. But
yeah,
you know, this is the Supreme Court. I don't even know if they really even have any rules in the Supreme Court. If they have a standard, because they're the Supreme Court. They're the last at the end of the road for the law and for it to be changed, for it to be fixed.
Yeah, I believe the Supreme Court, for the most part, is done on the honor system. So if somebody does not have honor, you're right. There's not going to be much enforcement.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just one of those situations where we hope that the way that they got the job, in a sense, for being known as a honorable justice, that they do their job. But again, looking on the flip side, I feel like they're doing what everybody else, including some of the judges, are doing. They're allowing him to receive every right and or avenue to pursue to get out of the jam. So when none of it works, they can just say, hey, man, look, we gave you chance after chance. We gave you right after right. We didn't infringe on any of your rights to prove your innocence, and you just didn't come through with it. You lost the case. Now you have to, face the consequences.
But I don't know, Stick. I don't know if it's going to come down to Trump lost the case. I think that certainly with this immunity issue, you're not going to get an answer until 2025, because it sounds like they're pushing it back to the appellate court, making them relitigate it. And then if Trump loses in the appellate court, he'll take it back to the Supreme Court. Here we go, 2025. And that's what he wants, is the delay.
Well, this is the thing with that. My problem that I have with that is they have all the common sense in the world. And I'm talking about the whole Supreme Court, not just the 6 justices that are right leaning. So it's going to be obvious, and Biden had already told them that the world's looking at you. They're watching you. We are.
But do you think? Wait a minute. Do you think people care about obvious anymore? You ask the left. If you talk to folks on the left, looking at January 6th on television, they believe it's obvious a coup took place. Yet here we are. So I don't know if obvious matters anymore.
Well, obvious doesn't matter with the right, and mostly MAGA right leaning. Obvious doesn't matter with them because at the end of the day, they'll come up with so many type of conspiracy theories and like you said earlier with the drinking of the blood type stuff. Like nobody cares about the conspiracy theories. We're talking about what's going on in front of our face that we see. We don't see any of that. So it's like it's null and void. We don't see it. It's kind of like white folks. How about this, white folks? It's kind of like, when everybody was running around on crack and y'all just act like everything was fine because it wasn't happening in y'all neighborhood. Now everybody sees the fentanyl because the fentanyl is happening in your neighborhood. Yeah, it's one of those type things.
Wow.
So you didn't see it, so you didn't believe it was going on, especially like the law being hindered upon black folks, and it was a 2-tier justice system with us, but you didn't see it, so you never spoke up about it. Now it's your homeboy, and he's spewing all the stuff that you want to hear. So guess what you do? You say now it's a 2-tier justice system because the stuff that he says I want to hear, and you're telling me it's wrong. And it definitely is. If it's the white president or the black president, it's wrong. You should just say, hey man, I can get this cheaper. Would you rather have the president that could get it cheaper, or would you rather have the president that it costs you more?
Well, I had a show though, when you mentioned getting things cheaper, I had a show the other day. I'm surprised at how many folks are now starting to say that the economy is either good under Biden or the price gouging is not his fault.
Well, but it's true. I mean, most of the people that have common sense understand these things, that he doesn't talk to Nabisco and say, hey, man, you need to take them Oreos up out of there and still charge the same price. He doesn't do that. And he's not the one that told the Saudis to reduce the oil by 10 million barrels a day. And I'm going to keep saying that. Trump did. I mean, when you got a excess of supply of things, you have to sell it cheaper because you're trying to get rid of it. And that's with anything, gas included. You got a lot of gas and you're trying to get rid of it. Guess what you're going to do? You're going to drop that price so you can get rid of it. Yeah. And he said, shrink it. Don't send so much. So what happens? We don't have enough. The price goes up. Supply and demand. Simple. Go ahead. And the other day actually this morning we were talking about how it's always pivoted to racial, right? So the other day when I was talking to you before I got, or after I got off, the guy said, there is no price on it. We don't know how much Biden gave. I sent you a post, and in that post it said Biden gave $7 billion.
You talking about HBCU?
I said HBCUs. So one gives $250 million, which equals out to about $89 per student, and the other gave $7 billion. So
well, let me ask you this though. Even though you're suggesting that Trump gave a lot less to HBCUs than Biden, the fact that he did do it, does that exclude him from folks saying he's racist? I mean, if he's racist, he wouldn't give money to black colleges, would he?
Well, my thing is this. Handsome.
Gotta go.
Important call I gotta take. Sorry about that.
Roger that. Take care of your call. Okay, looking in the comments, He gave bare minimum, says Alonzo Bates. Well, he could have made an excuse and not gave it at all. Kind of like the Harriet Tubman $20 bill. By the way, what happened to that? You know, it was Obama had this thing where you're going to have Harriet Tubman was going to be on a $20 bill. The Trump administration came and immediately shot that down, but you haven't heard about it under the Biden administration. Whatever happened, I guess they kind of squashed that. Yeah, Biden only did it to Trump. If Trump didn't do it, Biden wouldn't have either. Okay, looking in the comments, you're wrong. Trump gave more money than Obama or Biden. BTK, that is not true. That is not true that Trump gave more money to historically black colleges and universities than Biden. I think that has been shown not to be true at this point. Going back to the box real quick here, like I said, I don't mind, folks. We do believe in free speech, but if you're typing the same thing over and over again, you will be taken out. President Trump 2024. If we can make it to November under this sexually demented Marxist communist old Biden regime. Is that what we're living under right now, folks? A sexist, communist, sexually demented Marxist old Biden regime. That's a lot. That's a lot. Wow. Okay. I don't know. Listen, I've been around, obviously, you know, I'm no young man at this point. I've been around through several presidential administrations. My own personal life, going from Trump, who was supposedly, you know, Christian, God-fearing, capitalist, my life ain't changed that much. To say we went from a God-fearing, because this is what MAGA would say. I'm not giving Trump any title. I'm giving him what MAGA views him as. Christian, God-fearing, capitalist, patriot. That's Trump. Biden is supposedly, as he said, a Marxist, communist, sexually demented. This is what we're living under right now, according to my viewer. My life ain't changed that much. To say that the country allegedly made this radical change that he's pointing out. I still live in the same crib. Income has went up a little bit. I mean, I actually make more under Biden than I did under Trump. I haven't seen this huge change. I think some of this is evident that, you know, look, we don't like Biden, so we're going to make up a bunch of shit, but it hasn't changed that much for most Americans. It really hasn't. Looking in the comments, he must not be from America. That sounds a bit more like it. If you've seen America change that much from Trump to Biden, yeah, it sounds like you're on the outside looking in. As of January 2023, 20 million died worldwide. 2 billion are injured. Here in the States, Trump said it would go to the military and be dispersed from there. I believe they dispersed a placebo here. We're talking about the vax. I don't want to get too deep in this because it does lead to bans and shit. But he's saying as of January 2023, 20 million people died worldwide. Considering there's 7 billion people on the planet, that's not a big number. We'll tell you that. If the overwhelming majority of people have been vaxxed, that's actually not a big number. And by the way, we don't know if they all died from it. You could have been having some other ailment, and right after you got vaxxed, well, he died from that. Just like when people were getting COVID and perishing, they may have died from something else, but at that time, they were deeming them all as COVID deaths. We know a lot of those folks died from something else, where it could be working the same way in regards to the vax. But you're talking, what is it, 7 billion? And you're saying 20 million of them. That's actually not that bad. I mean, and I don't believe the 20 million is accurate, but I'm just letting you know. Looking in the comments, yes, it is a Biden regime. I don't understand how this guy goes from advanced dementia, can't string together a sentence, doesn't know where the hell he's at one day, to being a genius like an evil Hitler the next. He goes from being out of his mind to totally coherent and just demonic the next. It's almost like we're going to make up the image of Biden that we don't like to fit whatever narrative we're talking about today. You can't turn advanced dementia on and off like that. He goes out, gives a State of the Union address, which is 100% coherent. Everybody understands it. Folks are applauding. Well, they gave him speed. He was on meth. He took some cocaine. That ain't how the disease works. If it worked like that, everybody with dementia will be walking around looking normal. That ain't how it works. Pick and choose the biting you want to portray on the people. You can't turn dementia on and off like a light switch. That's insane. Looking in the box. Carlos Zirion, good afternoon. Welcome to the program. No one ever said that Biden is a genius. Well, if you're saying he can weaponize the DOJ and you are saying he's a genius. You're saying he knows how to strategically take out his opposition and all of this stuff. You are kind of saying that. Carlos, good afternoon.
Hey, how you doing, handsome?
I'm doing good. I'm trying to figure out if Trump potentially has the Supreme Court in his back pocket. What say you?
I don't think he has them in his back pocket. I think he knew what he was doing when he was putting in those justices. He knew that Amy Coney Barrett was Catholic mom, very strict values. He knew that, and he knew that to continue to get his base to grow, the hot topic button was that. I don't even think he knew the outcome of what having those people on the court would do. I actually think he thought it was more like some quid pro quo was going to happen, but I don't think he's strategic enough to say that I know how this is going to play out, and I really want there to be I want there to be an abortion ban at the federal level.
So what you're saying, so when you said you think there's some quid pro quo, what you're saying is
No.
But you just said it. What you're saying is he doesn't have the Supreme Court in his back pocket, but he was trying to get them in his back pocket.
Right. Yeah, that's you clarified for me. Thank you, handsome. Yeah, because I think that in his mind, he was trying to place judges that would do his bidding. But as a previous caller of yours said, Gorsuch is a constitutionalist 1,000%. Like, he's not budging. If the law and the Constitution are aligned, that's what he's using as his go-by. He doesn't even have a personal opinion on some of this stuff. He's just like, is it in the Constitution, yes or no? Like, that's that, right? So I think this is going to be very unpopular. I think that the move to the states, although the outcome was not what most of America wanted, was the right move because of the diversity and people. Now, the impact of that move, people now have to fly across states, et cetera, et cetera. I personally didn't like it, but I think that let the states decide. It had been, if it was already law, I don't believe that Supreme Court would have bounced it back to the states. Otherwise,
here's the issue.
They would have locked it up.
Here's the issue I have with it. These states that have now that we've put abortion out, into the hands of the states as you're talking about, and we're calling it, we gave it back to the states. I actually disagree with the terminology, because the people in those states didn't vote for those strict laws. That's coming from people that are in charge. If you give it to the actual people of Florida or Texas, or they overwhelmingly vote against what their state legislators are doing. We've seen it in Kansas. We've seen it in Ohio. We're going to see it everywhere abortion is on the ballot. It is highly likely that the people, if allowed to vote, even in the deep red states, they're going to go against those strict abortion bans that their legislators are. So it ain't states' rights. It's basically big government, just at the state level.
Well, I mean, but that's what I'm saying. Even when you get it, so I'm in Texas, and you know that. So when we go to the ballot box, I guarantee you there is going to be a massive push to get that out of here. No one like that. They want you to vote on it. And
no, they don't want you. They do not. Even though it's going to be on the ballot, they're trying to prevent it from being on the ballot. They don't want it to be on the ballot.
There's too many women and too many husbands that support the women, and too many daughters, right. Too many fathers, too many people. They're just not gonna. It's not gonna happen. And I think I told you, Dick Cheney used to be CEO of Halliburton right here in Houston. Okay, he was all fire and brimstone until you notice he softened when his daughter came out, right?
As gay, yeah.
You're right. He back way back. He went from Darth Vader to Grandpa. He saw
that also happened with Nancy Reagan with stem cell research too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you see what I'm saying? So what's going to happen is people that are beaten in fire and brimstone right now they look, their daughter is like, Mom, like, Dad, I got something to tell you. And here's the person I'm with. And they're going to be like, you know what? We got to have to change this. Just like fentanyl. Whoever brought that up on your live or in your comments, same thing. Like, it's not an issue until it's an issue. Now it's an issue. They don't want you to vote on it because you know it's going to get kicked the hell out of here because it's not who we are as people.
Yeah.
Right?
And
That's
not
really
only is it going to get kicked the hell out of there, but by encouraging the people to show up to vote on that, they're going to be voting liberal too.
Right. That's why to your point, that's why they don't want you to vote on it.
Yeah.
But it's the vote that the people want. And so that's why I think it's good, because what's going to happen is it gets codified at the state level. Right. There you go. Right. Problem.
Yeah, but how many people are going to face some awful outcomes until that's done? I mean, that would be like I don't want what else are they going to hand back to the states that could put people in jeopardy? I mean, with Arizona going back to a law from 1864, I asked this on the show before. I said that if anyone had said by putting in those Supreme Court justices, you're going to have states go back to the 1800s for some of their laws, they would have been accused of being a liberal fearmonger. But now that we have it, actually in reality, is there any possibility that you feel confident that no other law from the 1800s may be enacted?
So it's a great point, Handsome. It's a great point, because I have, rightly or wrongly, I have faith in the American people in mass, but there are pockets where they believe the 1800s were better than the 1900s were better than, like, you know what I'm saying? So, like, for instance, interracial marriage. Like I worry about Mississippi and Alabama, to be frank. You know what I mean? Like, I worry about the Gulf Coast states near my home. I'm not so worried about Texas, Houston, Dallas, and San Antonio will keep that at bay. But, like, I can't really speak on, like, Atlanta, Georgia, okay, but, like, there's some other states, Kentucky, Tennessee, West Virginia.
Yeah, but let me interrupt to say this, and I do believe interracial marriage down the line could potentially be threatened, but there's a lot of Republican men that are in interracial. Well, in my opinion, same-sex marriage would be a lot easier to roll back. First of all, it's only been here since 2015, unlike interracial marriage has been around since the 60s. And I believe you could easily get enough folks together to roll back same-sex marriage, because there's even a lot of Democrats that are not necessarily big allies of the LGBT community. So I believe same-sex marriage would be first.
You're right about that. But unlike, it's going to have to get to the Supreme Court because that's a federal law. Same-sex is the new law of the land, which means it's got to go to SCOTUS. Now, I think Trump, again, he's not a strategist, so he didn't put these people on the court because, I mean, yes, he did it for his own gain, but he wasn't thinking about these topics, I don't think, when he made these selections.
But people like Steve Bannon and some of his other guys were thinking about this stuff, and they're pretty smart.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Steve Bannon specifically, he had a master plan that was almost masterfully executed. Like, that thing was the only piece that he needed, like, because he got in the courts, upper, lower courts. I heard that Biden and Trump are about the same in terms of justices. I think you and I talked about that in the past. I think that was the plan. Own the courts, change the law, stay in power. Like, that was the move. Right?
Yeah, I think Trump, for the most part, wants to resume his position, and he is an opportunist. I get a lot of MAGA that agrees with that. I mean, as long as you're willing to support Trump, he will work with you on your cause. And someone like Steve Bannon, who could bring a hell of a lot of people to the camp. I mean, okay, you want this, it's not that popular, but if you're bringing me millions of voters, we can work something out.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I agree. Yeah, so that's my take on that. Is I think that the Supreme Court justices he picked, I think he overplayed on Gorsuch. He was right on the money with Kavanaugh. I think Clarence Thomas, who a previous caller said it, this dude is bad. Like, that's a bad dude.
Yeah, that's a bad man. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Clarence Thomas.
But I think Amy Coney Barrett, and like she's grounded in principles. They're Catholic. I'm not going to get into a religious debate, but they're grounded. Those Catholic principles are at least sound, except for like abortion. Like they're sound, like good for human beings.
Yeah, but Christian principles are not good for non-Christians.
Well, I mean, as long as we're not telling them how to pray and what to eat, it's fine, right?
I mean, Christian principles are not even great for women. You can't, they don't believe women should work, lead. I mean, there are if the further you go into Christianity.
We were doing so good. Why you gotta say that?
Well,
we were doing so good.
Do you believe Christian principles are favorable to women?
I don't believe the fundamentals. See, you took me here, chat. He took me here. Okay, I was about to drop. He brought me here.
I'll give you a minute. I'll give you a quick second.
Okay. Fundamentalist beliefs in the Bible are terrible for humankind. Full stop. However, the Jesus, when I say Christian, I mean like Jesus's beatitudes. Do unto others as you do to yourself. The golden rule, parable of the mustard seed, like prodigal son. Like these stories make for a good foundation of moral judgment, right? I'm not talking about eye for an eye, 10 Commandments, old school, you can sleep.
I don't think you need the 10 Commandments to tell somebody not to commit murder. I think humans know that already. I think you can put, you don't need religion to teach people those basic fundamentals. That's in you already.
Well, you would hope, but it happens, right? So, it happens a lot here in the United States, and it happens a lot with automatic weapons, and, it happens a lot here.
Yeah, and a lot of it is done in the name of Christianity. But go ahead.
Good. Okay, I will go ahead and give you the win on this point. I will give you the win. I will retract my statement. You were right. I was wrong. Amy Coney Barrett needs to be disqualified from this.
I'm not saying all that. I'm not trying to... Yeah, I'm not saying all that. I'm not saying all that, but even though I do have an issue with them blocking the other guy from a legitimate Supreme Court pick on some bullshit, but I got to move it on, Carlos. Been a pleasure talking to you.
Always a pleasure, brother. Take care.
Same. Moving the program on. Thank you, Carlos. God instilled your morals in you. If you didn't get them from God, then where? What is your standard if good and evil? Well, I mean, it's hard to answer that question unless you believe, because if a person says, I don't believe in God, then you got an issue, because you stated that God is who instilled the morals in you. What if they believe the morals are instilled in them by Allah? Or what if they just believe it is naturally what was instilled in human beings? I don't personally, I believe you could put 10 babies on a damn deserted island, drop food to them, and as they grow older, they will know committing murder is wrong. I don't think you need to read the Bible to know that. I think some things are in you that doing this is a wrong, stealing, things like that. I think you already know that. I just believe it's instilled. Now, the argument is, well, God taught you that. Okay, well, if God taught you that, that's fine, but you don't need to read the 10 Commandments. It is in you. It's programmed into your DNA. I don't think you need to keep reading that over and over again in the Bible or on the 10 Commandments. I think it's already in you. But also, we credit the benefits or the moral good in religion is why we say put religion in schools and things like that. We exclude all of the judgment and hatred that comes from religion because we favor it. Like we talk about the LGBT community. Religions are not fond of the LGBT community. If you're in a deeply religious society, there's no room for the LGBT community. Any society, because most of the deeply religious societies are in the Middle East, for instance. There's no room for the LGBT community in those societies. When America was a deeply religious country back in, let's say, its inception between the 1700s to probably around early 1900, there was no room in our society for the LGBT community. Hell, there wasn't even room in society for a single woman. I mean, there was a lot of things that if you fell in these categories, Christianity was teaching people that you are wrong. Something is fundamentally wrong with you. Like I said, a woman that's 35, you ain't got married yet, you are tainted. Something must be wrong with you. I mean, that's how religion was teaching people. All of these different areas. So it teaches you moral good, but it also makes you incredibly judgmental. Certainly of people who don't believe like you do or worship the same God as you. All of that's in there too. We don't talk about that. But if you don't believe in Christianity and you believe in another religion, Christianity ain't very friendly to you. So I don't know. And that's why a lot of folks suggest that it shouldn't be in schools. I'm not a fan of putting religion in schools for this simple reason. I believe it worked very well when there was no diversity and everybody had the same mindset. I do believe Christianity would work well in an environment like that. Or any religion. I think any religion will work well in an environment where everybody believes the same thing. But the America of 2024 is not the America of, say, 1824. There's a lot of different people here now. And they're allowed to bring their own cultures and religions with them. 1824, maybe not so much. So you go to a school now, the parents of those children may cover a variety of religions. I don't believe you should teach it in schools, because if you're teaching Christianity, there may be a third of the class that don't believe in that. But you don't want them to speak. You don't want them praying when it creates a mess. I just believe it creates a mess. But maybe I'm wrong. Looking in the comments, and I agree with Arshafine says that's what private schools are for. Yeah. Drusilla asked the question, is Trump religious? I don't think so. I think Trump is a fan, an ally to Christianity. Like, I would consider myself an ally to the LGBT community, but I'm not a member of the LGBT community. I believe that is how Trump is to Christianity. He is an ally to Christianity, but I don't believe he's a hardcore Christian. Was he really known as being Christian before becoming president? Was he ever known to be going to church on Sunday? Obviously Biden has been going to mass for a long ass time. But I believe Trump is an ally to Christianity, but he himself is not Christian. That's the way I view it. A lot of you folks have a different opinion. If Christians don't vote for him, he wouldn't care, says Carlos. But he might lose those votes. He wants them to vote for him. Christianity says that no woman should be in any form of leadership, says Marcus Stanley. I'm not big on the Bible, but if that is in there, that's exactly what I mean. That obviously has oppression written right all over it. It is possible God created us and then gave little to no guidance. Marcus, I agree, it does seem that way sometimes. Yeah. My issue with Trump is that I think a lot of his beliefs are just to pander to his audience. For example, he used to be pretty pro-choice, but changed once he started running. Some say the same about Biden too, though. Some suggest that he wasn't very favorable to the black community, and now he's pandering. And to some degree, all politicians pander. That's what being a politician is about. You're a salesman. You're essentially selling yourself to your constituents. Just like if a salesman came to your house and wanted to sell you a vacuum cleaner, all of a sudden he likes the color of the rug you got in your house, or that's a really nice table. He's pandering to you. He's saying shit to get you to be, that's what politicians do. They sell themselves. I believe all politicians do that. Maybe Trump does it a little bit more or less than others, but I think they all kind of do that. And I also believe that helps knock out the theory that Trump is not a politician. Them days are over. He is currently a politician. Lewis Clyde, good afternoon. Welcome to the program. The Supreme Court in Trump's back pocket. I don't know what happened with Lewis, but he came and went. Tried again with the Stick Derula. Good afternoon, Stick. Welcome back to the program. What do you think? You think the Supreme Court's out to help Trump?
Yeah, again, it's just one of those situations where three of them were already there that were right-leaning, and then you have the ones that he appointed in the sense when he was president. So maybe.
Yeah, but when you say three of them were right-leaning, Chris Christie, Nikki Haley, they're right-leaning. That don't mean they favor Trump.
Well, it's not so much that they favor Trump; it's they're right-leaning. They're gonna more or less look out for him for the simple fact he's one of us. if I could say it like that.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
And then on top of that, like I said, he appointed the other ones, and it's kind of like, this guy gave me my shot. I'm gonna do the best of my ability to make it look like, in a sense, I'm following the Constitution, and I'm only allowing the things that basically common sense I should allow. But other than that, anything else is going above and beyond what they should do for Trump.
So let me ask you, do you think at the end of the day they may grant him immunity?
I don't think they're going to grant him full immunity, what he wants, but I do think they're going to give him some. Because, I mean, let's be honest. They do have some immunity to certain things. You can't be an American citizen and think that the president does not have some type of immunity. He does. If he can have it in civil, he probably can have it in some type of.
Well, let me phrase it this way. Now, I agree with you. Like for George W. Bush, the Iraq War was likely, he committed some war crimes. Certainly, a lot of innocent people died that should not have. But he can say he thought he was doing what was in the best interest of the United States, and thereby be granted immunity. I think Obama, with droning an American citizen, was given the same issue. But when it comes to January 6th, was what happened there that day, was Trump doing that on behalf of the United States, or was he trying to steal an election?
Well, it was a double down. This is who we're dealing with. We're dealing with the double down. We already talked about how he doubles down. Okay, the double down is this. I did that for the American people because I feel that I'm best for this country. This is what's going to be his argument. I felt that this needed to happen because the country was being lied to, and me as the president, I felt like I had to do something about it. This is the MAGA lie that he's basically.
But don't it have to be based on something? If you feel like the election was stolen and people were being lied to, don't it have to be based on actual evidence?
Well, I mean, with Trump, no. I mean, the Central Park 5. Yeah. You can have no evidence that they did anything.
Well, the Central Park, in defense of Trump, the Central Park 5, although juveniles and were interrogated for hours without even their parents around, they did confess. Some of them were tricked into a confession. So I can see, just like these fake electors down in Georgia that are pleading guilty, and MAGA's trying to say, well, maybe they're railroaded. People are always going to believe somebody is guilty when they confess or take a guilty plea. And the Central Park 5 originally did confess. I think some of them did.
And that's understandable. But again, it's just one of those things where we find out that the justice system is a two-tier justice system. And he was one of the people that at that time didn't see it.
Yeah.
And now that he's feeling like he's being railroaded, now all of a sudden those same two-tier justice systems that he helped railroad is railroading him.
Yeah. I would say it's kind of like what Lisa in the comments said. Even if you made a mistake, in regards to the Central Park 5, he could have easily just apologized and say, yeah, I effed up. The fact that he, as you say, doubled down, that's what probably make him look the worst when it comes to the Central Park 5. Just a quick look. I got it wrong. A lot of us got it wrong. Like with Joe Biden in the crime bill, the argument is, even though it may have been really harmful to African Americans, look, a lot of folks during that time believed that this was what was in the best interest of the country to get the drug epidemic under control. But now here it is, 2024. I'm sorry. I mean, he apologized for it. I think that's where Trump looks different.
Yeah, he definitely looks different, but not only that, again, he's just one of those people that it takes a gag order for him just to be quiet. And even with the gag order, he's not being quiet. So, that's what we're dealing with. And, it all boils down to this. Trump only acts the way he acts because of his supporters. He only acts the way he acts because of not only his supporters, but his party. And, the nuance of his party, MAGA. At first it started small, little bit by little bit. Hey, they don't like hearing bad stuff about me. That's what he came out and said. And as soon as he made it known to everybody that not only does he not like hearing bad stuff, that he wants his supporters to feel that same way. They start feeling that same way. A lot of times they don't hear, or they haven't read documents, or they haven't read transcripts and stuff of court, and all of it has his name on it. But they don't know anything about it because they don't want to hear anything bad about Donald Trump. Wow. So the more and more you feed that ego, the more and more you get the real, true Donald Trump.
Wow. So it started out as a small movement, and he kept saying the same thing over and over again. It grew and grew in support, and here we are.
Here we are. It's I mean, you like you said, we go to having dinner with QAnon to
left of Bernie Sanders.
What's your saying?
Left of Bernie Sanders to having dinner with QAnon.
Exactly. So, it started out with Bernie Sanders, and now we're having dinner with QAnon. And you know what I mean? This is what it is.
It's a very successful movement. I got to move it on, no stick, but MAGA to this day is very successful, pretty powerful. Yeah. Appreciate it.
One last thing.
Real quick.
One last thing, Tim. The thing with them is, again, it's no change in their minds. Now they're locked, they're set. We call them captain because, you got to show them some respect, but they're willing to go down with the ship. And that's the reason why we call them captain. But at the end of the day, now they're Captain Save-A-Ho. They're trying to save one hoe, and that's Donald Trump.
Oh, that's awful. That's awful. Stick, appreciate you coming through.
Yes, sir.
Anytime. Well, to some degree, they also call him captain because they think Biden sucks. That's one reason why they're rolling with Trump, because they think Biden is awful for this country. But as I always say, you had 9 other choices, which most MAGA believe are all better than Biden. I mean, even they don't favor Nikki Haley at all, but I think most MAGA would favor Nikki Haley over Biden. So they had other choices. But my last caller was saying that it started out as a small movement. You kept saying it, and it grew and grew. The whole time I'm hearing that song, some people started singing it, not knowing what it was, and they'll continue singing. What is it? They'll continue singing it forever just because this is a group. Anyway, looking in the comments, I don't know how many of you folks are old enough to remember that song. Somebody in the comments, where did that come from? Some people started singing it, not knowing what it was, but they'll continue singing it forever just because. This is a song that... there you go, Gregory. Gregory knows it. Okay, that's CHR Gator. Looking in the comments, though, and I see on YouTube, Evan knows it as well. I'm sure it's good for certain people or certain fields, but I don't think it really needs to be taught on the high school level. I let her know what I ran into, Mark, because I didn't see the conversation on that. But looking in the comments, I was born in 78. All right, some of you folks do know what I'm talking about. I mean, kids need to know how to cook. They need to know how to drive. I mean, basic life skills. So many kids graduate high school with useless knowledge and still don't know how to do things. I agree with that 100%. Children today, man, they are dependent as hell. We were whether you grew up as a child in the 70s and 80s like myself, or probably even the 80s and 90s, chances are you were far more independent as a child than the children of today. They are not very independent at all. I mean, by the time we were 13, 14, you could come home from school before your parents. You knew how to prepare a few quick snacks. You didn't have all of the quick cooking devices that they do now. I mean, hell, if I wanted a pot pie, a Swanson TV dinner back in the 70s, you had to put that bitch in the oven and wait an hour. Try coming home hungry or playing ball all day and wanting to eat a pot pie and being told on the box it takes 50 minutes before this cooks. Now they got the microwave. They can have it done in 5. So, yeah, children these days, though, I mean, we could, you could make some eggs or make a little food. I mean, they barely even know how to wash dishes because the machine does that. Children these days are way more, or better yet, way less independent than we were. I mean, I would go fishing 10, 11 years old. I knew how to chop the tail off, chop the head off, split the damn thing open and pull out the guts. I mean, at a very young age, they don't even want to put the damn worm on the hook nowadays. It's a different world. And the lack of respect for authority and adults is off the chain. This is the issue folks talk about. If you get too soft on crime, there is no incentive to be law-abiding. If you get too soft on children, there is no incentive to do what the hell you're telling them to do. And most children nowadays know, if I don't do this, there is a very limited amount of options a parent can take. It is crazy. Child go to school, act up, acting ass in school. Teacher calls the parent. Now, my teacher would whoop my ass, talking about Miss Veasley in second grade, Miss Butler in fifth grade back in South Side of Chicago. They would first whip your ass, call your parents. What happened? I'm whooping your ass when you get home too. That's what we had to deal with. Nowadays, the teacher can call the parent. The parent will come to school and threaten to whoop the teacher's ass. It is so backwards. It shouldn't surprise anybody why the children are not, this crop of children are being produced are terrible. I mean, no discipline, expectation that everything should be handled. It's horrible. It really is. I mean, I'm a big fan of corporal punishment. I mean, I got my ass beat coming up, and I think I turned out all right. Talking to some of my MAGA folks, having a good conversation every day. I don't think I turned out bad. But nowadays, the children know there is virtually no discipline for acting up. And it has produced a really awful crop of children. I don't even know how teachers do it. I wouldn't want to be over a class that didn't have to respect me. And if I said something, their whole damn family comes up to the school and want to whoop my ass for $50,000 a year, I'm good. I'm out of here. I'd rather go to Walmart. So I don't know how they do it, but shout out to those who do it. I mean, even the cops, being African-American, listen, I know that there's issues with police, but we respected authority growing up. You got little kids that will cuss out cops. That was unheard of coming up in my day. It is not uncommon to see children well under the age of 15 talking shit to a cop. That never happened. It is a disaster out there, folks. It is a disaster. I don't know, we talk about the older World War II generation being the greatest generation. I don't know what the generation now will be named when they get to be of age, but I don't foresee a good outcome. It's crazy. You don't have to beat your kids to get them to listen, says Nadine. Shit, sometimes you do. Sometimes listen, let me say it this way. Pain is a universal language. Everybody understands pain. I might be able to do without a PlayStation, a tablet, or a book for a few hours. Pain is understandable. It is a universal language. No human being wants to encounter pain. I'm going to go with pain for 500. There might be a couple kids that like pain, but it ain't many of them. I could personally do without Legos or whatever the hell I used to play with as a kid if I got put on punishment. Turn the TV off. I'm good. I was sleepy anyway, damn it. I ain't never in the mood to get my ass whooped. That is never something I would prefer to get. So I don't know. I disagree with you suggesting you don't have to whoop your kid's ass to get them to agree with you. Some kids and by the way, that is an effective, immediate solution. I gotta suspend you. I gotta go punish you. Look, you start talking about whooping some ass, you get immediate response. I just think pain has a better outcome. But I understand that is outdated. That's archaic by today's standards. And a lot of folks disagree with it. But like I said, I grew up, my dad was a Marine straight out of Vietnam, had me pretty much right after coming home from that war. And we were yes sir or no sir. I mean, my dad, if I didn't say yes sir or no sir to any adult talking to me, he went the fuck off. If he's sitting by me and we're at a PTA meeting at school or something like that, teacher says something and I go yes or no, he looks at me and I know that's my ass. No, yes, ma'am. No, sir. That's how we were brought up. And I do believe it was far more effective back then when you had a hierarchy structure. I say this even today. Your children are not your equal. They are subordinates. Too many people think that their kids are on their level. You guys don't show up and pay the rent together. What the hell is this? You're on the same level as a 6-year-old? That makes you look awfully ridiculous, but it is what it is. You parent the way you do, folks. I'll try to give it a shot the way I do, but I'm not a fan of treating children as equals. They just don't have the maturity and the mindset to handle the responsibility. They're not equals. You gotta bring them up to that level. So nevertheless, anyway, I've ranted on long enough, but I see some folks disagree. Fair enough. But I think the men, the men are like spot on. It's general. The women are, even my mom, even though she would whip my ass sometimes, she was softer on discipline than my dad was. Mom could threaten to beat your ass. Dad could look at you, and the look of a dad's eyes are stronger than the ass whooping coming from mom. I'd rather have a physical ass whooping from mom than my dad just looking at me, because I know that ass whooping is going to count. But people have a difference of opinion. But I do believe we need to go back to the era where, at the very least, an ass whooping was on the table. I'm not saying beat the hell out of your kids all day, every day, but an ass whooping should be an option. The children should know that an ass whooping is on the table. It don't ever have to be. Listen, I don't ever want nuclear war, but I want our adversaries to know it's on the table. That has value. We don't have to drop a bomb. We are capable of doing it. That is where the compliance comes in. Children of today know an ass whooping is not even an option. It's not even on the table. And then this 911 shit. Let me get out of here before it becomes a comedy show. But the idea that a kid being threatened for not doing their homework or getting bad grades can threaten to call the cops on their parents, and they actually show up. What part of the game is this? I think the parents of those days would look at us and say, you guys are all fools. No wonder why some of them are going to school and shooting people up. Who raised you? To quote the comedian T.K. Kirkland. It's your boy Tim, the handsome liberal. Catch you guys tomorrow. Same for you folks on YouTube. Appreciate the outrageous, literally outrageous support that came from John in regards to the super chat. Thank you very much. You talking about that one all weekend. Thank you. Nevertheless, it is your boy Tim, the handsome liberal. I will see you guys. I'll probably be on it tomorrow. I believe about 4 o'clock. Catch you then.